Hello, and welcome to episode 225 of Flix and Deuxs, a podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Costanzo, with me for always.
That was the most defeated it's ever been.
With me forever and always, the man, the myth, the kaiju, Alessandro Biolsi. Say LOL.
We're back again.
For the first time, for the last time. On this week's episode, we've got some Spaceballs 2, Nosferatu, Joker 2, all before diving into our flick of the week.
You totally gave up on what the title of that movie is.
All before diving into I couldn't stop thinking about because before we started the show I said Joker Adieu, and I started thinking about the Sound of Music song, and then I started thinking about John Mulaney's version of the
my gosh. I am 16 going on 17, baby I'm 35, whatever it is.
All before diving into our flick of the week, Godzilla. This is gonna be an episode. I'm fairly certain. Our flick of the week.
This is gonna Godzilla, be an episode of a podcast.
An episode of a podcast. Godzilla Minus One. But first, Al, what are we drinking?
We're drinking kind of old. This is not the oldest beer we've done. I promise.
No.
The Litmus Test Sour Ale series from Newburgh. This is their rotating series of beers that they had done with a different sour type of fermentation or different base and / fermentation of each. I'm pretty sure this was last year. I hope. Maybe it was the year before. Thankfully, there's no date on the bottom. After.
As I said, the date's rubbed off.
I'm sure if you looked it up online, you could probably find out.
Sure.
This was the 8th one. We've done a couple of them during the course of the show.
We have.
This is using Golden Brett, which, Brettanomyces is the strain of bacteria / yeast, whatever. It's a Farmhouse sour ale. It was brewed and canned at Newburgh Brewing Company, as always. Unfortunately, this is only 12 ounces, but we won't hold that against them too much.
I'll hold it against them.
Were we only going to give them like 80% of the score we would?
That's fair. 80% fuck. Although I will say, for a sour ale, I don't think I want much more than 12 ounces anyway. So
depends. That being said, it's 7% alcohol by volume, which is pretty high for a sour beer. It's really hard to do that, actually, because
interesting.
It's actually one of the fundamental things that goes into the making of a sour beer, that it actually inhibits the actual creation of alcohol. So this probably took them a long time to make. I don't remember what the price was relative to what they are. I don't know if they smooth it across the series, but I wouldn't have been surprised if they would have charged like an extra $1 per can on these, because it's like
just like what goes into it.
Yeah, same thing as like.
I mean, look at all the science right there on the can.
Yeah, I mean, there's a scientist with
a few bucks of science right there,
a crooked mustache and crooked glasses. I appreciate that they came up with their own little periodic element. FA, Farmhouse Sour.
Nice.
Atomic number 8.
That's cool. I appreciate this little logo that they have that is a beer, but also a heart. And it says brewed with heart.
If you think that's crazy, what's even crazier is I have one on my can and on my glass.
Wow.
Coincidence? I think not.
My glass says Costanzo on it.
The C glass. You forgot to grab your Newburgh glass?
Yeah, I just didn't even think. I just opened the cabinet and grabbed it.
I almost didn't think about it either as I was walking past with my beers, and then I was like, hang on a second. Crazy concept.
Yeah. What if? Now hear me out.
So up on the top on the chalkboard where he was diagramming out his diabolical process, he's got a little brewed with heart giant beer vessel.
I was going to say, if you look really closely at the beer vessel, there's also this heart that looks like a beer.
And along with all of its piping to different Erlenmeyer flasks. And
I like the two beer mugs clinking.
Bunsen burners and such vials. And then, there's, one of those like atomic nucleus symbols.
Yeah.
And
well, Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, exactly. All sorts of other things with hydroxide groups and stuff like that. And little notes, Brett, funky, strong. I like that it's next to a hydroxide group, so it says O strong.
This is really cool, though. Like, I mean, we've always liked their can art, but like the amount of detail that's going into like each individual panel of this is pretty impressive.
And I feel bad, I forget the name of the artist, because all of the ones that are in this style, which is like 80% of their beers, are all done by the same artist.
Oh, that's cool.
I just don't remember who it is now.
Oh, there's another Brewed with Heart under the Please Keep Refrigerated. I guarantee you at some point we did not follow the rules.
No.
There's a non-zero chance that this was in my frunk for 3 days.
I was going to say, was this a Tesla frunk beer? Okay, how about this? Let me rephrase. My chain of custody was fine. I can't speak for yours.
Oh, man. Golden Brett.
Yeah.
I'm ready to taste this one.
Okay.
Doctor?
Don't let me hold you back, Doctor.
Ooh, that is pungent.
I mean, it still smells the same as when I first drank it, so it's probably fine.
Yeah. That's nice.
Yes.
That is...
You know how sometimes when you hear funky describing a food or a drink, and you're like, I don't know if I like that. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes you hear funky describing a drink, and then you try it, and you're like, I do like that.
Yeah.
This is the latter.
It's got like, it's syrupy.
Yeah, a little bit.
I like it. It's got an interesting mouthfeel.
My guess would be that they probably pitched some extra sugar in order to get that extra alcohol content.
Sure.
Not 100% sure, because it's not a crazy heavy body, but there is some of that residual sweetness that you might get from like a candy sugar addition.
Yeah.
Like in a triple. So I don't know whether they use that or not, but I wouldn't rule it out.
I see what you're saying there. Like, yes, like, but like texture wise, I'm getting that, but I'm not getting that like sickly sweet that I usually don't like in certain beers, like that have that extra.
But you like triples though.
No, not usually.
I thought you did.
No, huh. I'm not like I mean, you know, I'll drink anything and try it. But
you have brought three philosophers to my house. Yeah,
I mean, I also got sick on Three Philosophers once, and I think that maybe have turned everything.
Oh, okay.
That and I had to take a train. It was just not it was
more on that.
It's a long journey home. No good. But yeah,
no, not your train ride. My train ride. So.
No.
But a lot's happened since we spoke last.
Seriously, my beer, I will say, it's very warm.
Oh, mine's not.
I took mine out a while ago, and then Elio had other plans for this show.
Mine stayed cold. I mean, it's definitely not ice cold, but mine's still pleasantly cold. And I took mine out around the same time as you. I was on the phone with you, and we were both in front of our fridge at the same time.
I mean, my room is also like 1,000 degrees.
Oh, okay. I'm in a basement. It's pleasantly cool.
I'm currently dealing with the fact that my office and Ian's room are on the opposite side of the house from the entire HVAC system. And
so you're getting the dregs of the AC?
Specifically my vents are like it's the end. Like they're the last two and they're on the second floor. So we're talking getting up into the first floor from the basement and then up into the second floor on the complete opposite side of the house after it's split at least 16 times. To other places.
That's how my bedroom is. I also receive the dregs. The only saving grace is that. So that's the problem. Is when the AC kicks on, it feels a while. Like it takes a while for me to like actually feel the cooling, unless I purposefully position myself in front of the vent, which like really only happens if I'm like playing a video game. If I'm laying in bed, it's more towards my feet.
Sure.
Now, I am the only bedroom that has two inside walls. So once my room gets warm in the winter or gets cold in the summer, it stays that way, which is nice. Okay. I have less heat loss outside of the house because I have the smallest room. And it only has one. It only has one outside wall. So, like once it reaches temperature, it's the best situation. It just takes the longest to reach temperature.
Gotcha. My office is 3 outside walls too, so it's really not. It's the worst.
Oh it's the worst case that's right. Because you have the whole width of the house room there, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Actually, I forget that that's the case. Yeah,
I did get a little something on Amazon on Prime Day, which is like 6 days, because it's like the pre-Prime sales and the post-Prime sales. But I got something there. AC Infinity is a company that makes them. They're register boosters. I'm going to try them out because I figured if they don't work, I could always return them. But you just replace the registers, the wall registers, with these, and they have a thermostat in them and 2 fans to pull, like to force the air faster through the ductwork into the room. So the idea being that it's weak by the time it gets to the register, so the little fans will help pull it up faster.
You're giving it a little push,
and then also disperse it through the room a little bit better. So we'll see how that works.
The other thing you can try is if you have any, like we've had them in this house forever now, the magnetic strips. You cover up the vents in less used rooms.
All of the vents downstairs are currently closed. But
even when they're closed,
they still
a fair amount of leakage.
I may have to get some of those. I was actually debating getting like a damper for inside of the ductwork, because you could put them on because there's certain rooms downstairs that just don't need a vent.
Yeah, which is why we use them. Like my mom set them up years ago, like in the living room, like what used to be the quote unquote formal living room and dining room.
Yeah.
Because it's just huge empty space. And so it would force it. Now I've heard that supposedly it can have some negative effects overall to it can put strain on the system itself, but I'm a little bit skeptical of that because it's only pushing so much. I'm not saying it doesn't do anything, but it can only do so much to it really. Even if it cuts 5% of it, that's really, the systems should last 10 to 20 years, depending on what system you have and what maintenance you get on it and all that. How often you're running it,
At the rate I'm running it right now, it's not going to last because it's just on all the goddamn time.
Yeah,
I will say I got to close the ones that were closed immediately are the vents that are in the room with the thermostat.
Yeah,
because it's also the closest thing to the fucking furnace and the rest of the unit. I'm just and the air handler. I'm like, well, this is not the place for this.
I feel like. Going back again for the third time to gaslighting. The first 2 were off air, audience.
Now you're gaslighting the audience.
Yeah,
you were there,
weren't you? But I feel like this is a game that every house plays because our thermostat is dead center of the middle of the hallway, which seems theoretically like a fantastic place to put it. Except for the fact that our house is built directly facing south. So the sun traverses the front of the house the entire day. We have vaulted ceiling in the front with a massive, massive bay window.
Yep.
So for
it's a little warm.
The entire heat of the day, the sun is beating directly on the thermostat.
Yeah.
Unimpeded.
Yep.
So it's always in the winter, it's
smart.
In the winter, it's fucking freezing because the sun is beating directly at it, and it's it's plenty warm in there, even though it's 30 degrees colder in every other room in the house, except for the one room that no one's ever in for more than 30 seconds as they're traversing it.
Yeah.
So my mom has taken to. She opens now that we changed. We used to have the sliding track closet doors when they got the floors and the walls redone. They put in swing open doors. So she'll just open one of the doors so it's blocking.
Yeah, smart. I open.
If you're ever in the house in the middle of the day in the winter, there's just an open a fully open closet door. It's just because it's blocking that thing.
Hey, that's a solution.
But 20 years,
right there.
20 years where we didn't have that, and occasionally there would be something draped over or in front of it, kind of. But during the day, it actually works to it. Now we set it a little on the higher side, but the sun beats down on it, so it feels like it's warmer. So it'll run kind of all the time. Sometimes during the day. The system we have now is so much better than the one we had for the first, I don't know, almost 20 years in this house.
I definitely. So I'm going to do a couple things. I've got these things coming. Hopefully they'll help. Once I've got those going to see if it makes a difference in these rooms, I have an Ecobee thermostat, so I might get a couple of their temperature probes that you could put in other rooms because they're presence sensing.
Will it create a network temperature? Or whatever?
Yeah, and you could be the thermostat downstairs will be perfect, it's 70 degrees, and the one upstairs will be counterpoint.
It's 85.
No, it's not. Yeah. So I might look into getting some of those, and then also I would like to replace the filter mechanism on the unit. It's just a kind of the standard, the very thin filter. like the 1-inch thick ones. And, you can get various levels of how much filtering it will do.
Mm-hmm.
But I have the space to get a 4-inch one, which allows for a lot more airflow through the filter, but still allows you to filter more. Filter more plus airflow. Like that's the ideal scenario. So I might look into getting that updated and see if it makes some differences. Because every time, when I replace the filter itself, it immediate difference in the airflow.
Yeah,
but
which I've heard a lot of people have that issue. I don't know how often the filter here has changed, but also they bought a couple of those like specific like allergen filters in like the heavy traffic areas. So because the dogs, the amount of like hair, which like that you could literally see like after a day or two, like you'll see the hair stuck to the outside.
Oh yeah, we've got a couple of those too,
and it's like it's stuck to the outside of like the plastic, and it's like it's like that could have gone into that filter, except there's so much of it and it's so big that it actually can't go into it. So at least it is a nice sanity check of, that's actually doing something.
No, for sure. Every time I vacuum out the air purifiers, I'm like, goodness gracious.
Well, a few years ago, I forced them to get a vacuum because my mom was always like, there's just fucking hair everywhere. And I was like, we've had 2 dogs living concurrently in the house for like 8 years now.
Sure.
9 years now. I was like, it's not possible. Even if we had a professional maid service to like keep up with it, I was like, I understand you don't think it's going to do enough, but the point is you will spend 3 hours a day vacuuming the fucking house. Now the robot vacuum will spend 3 hours a day vacuuming the house. And when you feel like it's not done a good enough job, you just hit the couple of spots that you didn't like, and so you're vacuuming for 20 minutes, not 3 hours a fucking day.
You feel like he didn't do a good enough job, you decommission his ass and you get a new one.
I mean, every once in a while it gets unplugged for 3 months, but
Johnny Five alive? No longer.
No, I mean, again, when you see how often that thing gets dumped out, like it's doing work, even if it's not doing a perfect job. The point is, it's like holding it at bay, so it's not pure chaos.
It keeps the pain at bay. Which one do you have?
We have the shark one.
Oh, cool.
One of the.
I was looking at one the other day. It was probably like a year ago. It was a year ago because I was looking at these when we moved in, and it dawned on me that to either last week or in a few days, we'll have had this house a year. Which is crazy. We didn't move in until September.
Yeah,
but we closed in July. Yeah,
this makes sense because I remember hearing all that stuff and then kind of losing track of it leading into our trip, and then hearing about it like after I got back. The bats and such.
The bats. Speaking of, now that we're a year out, they should probably be coming back to check to make sure that everything's still on the up and up vis-a-vis the bats. But I was looking into the robot vacuums that also have like an emptying canister where they can it's like the pedestal that they go to charge at sucks all of the gunk back out of the vacuum.
That's what our house.
That's what you have? All right.
Works so you actually empty the canister itself, not the vacuum. I mean, you still got to occasionally go clean out the vacuum itself also. But I don't know, probably 3 times a week we just pop the thing right off and dump it out. And I think my mom washes the filter. It's got a reusable, washable filter.
Yeah.
Cool. So, she does that. I don't know how often she washes that, but she does that on occasion.
I might have to get one of those. There's just crumbs everywhere these days.
Well, you have kids, which make a similar amount of mess to dogs. Different flavor of mess, but similar enough.
Today we got to play this game of Is It Chocolate?
Don't like that game.
Yeah. Kim was like, he ran out of the bathroom after he went. He's potty trained now. That happened since the last time we recorded.
No, that happened before then. We talked about it.
Oh, it did? He's fully potty trained. But he ran out. I guess he ran out of the bathroom, and sometimes he just flushes it on his own. So she's like, I didn't know if he went or not. But he also had a cookie earlier, and we were looking at the couch, and it's like, what is that? It was
either way, stain removal stuff is required.
Yeah, it was chocolate. It's been taken care of. The stain has been eliminated. What are we doing here? The beer, we didn't rate it. I'm gonna go.
That was a long.
What are we drinking? Farmhouse.
That's gotta be the longest tangent we've ever done between tasting and rating.
I'm almost done.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't forget, it was also only 12 ounces instead.
That's true. That's true. I didn't actually end up grabbing that other beer that is old that you don't have.
You should have.
I probably should have. Maybe during the break. This is it's probably a 3 thuckle beer as far as sours go.
So 2.5 thuckles because
so maybe
2.5
rule? Thuckles because of the rules. Yeah, on account of the 12 ounces. No, we'll go 2 thuckles on account of the 12 ounces.
Okay,
2 thuckles. I like it. It's very drinkable for a sour.
Yeah,
because sours can go like a lot of different ways. I feel like some of them I think are trying to assault your senses. And while I get it, like it's interesting, right? Those are real funky, but sometimes they have really interesting and good flavors, but it's like insane.
Well, this is cool because the Farmhouse beer, the Saison, you can use those terms more or less interchangeably. Mm-hmm. Historically, often tended to be a sour beer because they were doing it on a fucking farm, and it would just be open fermentation as often as not. Mm-hmm. So that usually encourages light, if not heavy, souring of the beer because of the wild yeast, which you have called me before on episode.
Yeah. That brought me back.
Yeah. So to play that up from the intention with intentionality, so we're going to up this from open fermentation to active souring with the same style of beer. Like that's a pretty cool. Yeah, souring can be used as a verb when it comes to beer making.
Yeah.
To use active souring, like it's a cool idea. It's a modern take on an old classic.
Open fermentation transitioning into active souring pretty much describes my experience watching Acolyte. Jesus. More on that later. But that's interesting. Yeah. So we're at 2 thuckles? 3 thuckles?
I would go 2. It's
2 thuckles. 2 thuckles it is. Lock it in.
Very, very solid.
The votes have been casted. I think with that, it's time to get into some news and nuggets. Because there's stuff to talk about.
If you insist.
Lots of sequels to talk about. Spaceballs 2. Tell me about it. What do you know?
So they're making one.
Next topic.
So this story was from a little over a month ago when I had first started planning this episode. Spaceballs sequel in development.
The next thing that I'm going for is that you make a note, and then we're on hiatus long enough for that thing to have become a reality, and that's the movie we're doing.
That would be some Inception type of shit. This is on Variety. Of all the times, this tab has been open so long. How the ad comes out now, and I can't find the... How do I escape you?
How do I escape you?
That one was diabolical. This was on Variety. Spaceballs sequel in development at Amazon MGM with Josh Gad starring, Mel Brooks producing.
I feel like I knew this was happening.
You probably saw it a month ago. Who knows? Josh Greenbaum will direct the film from a screenplay by Benji Samit, Dan Hernandez, and Gad, while Kevin Salter will executive produce. The project's in early stages and plot details are being kept under wraps. Amazon declined to comment. The writing duo...
Why?
I don't know. The writing duo Samit and Hernandez are both known for their work as screenwriters for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, Addams Family 2, and the upcoming Disney Plus Lucasfilm special Lego Star Wars: Rebuild the Galaxy.
Wait, Addams Family 2 Family Values, or like
just says Addams Family 2 on here.
Like there was like the cartoon Addams Family movies, right? That came out?
Yes.
Maybe it's probably those based on the time frame of the other movies that were referenced.
The original 1987 MGM film Spaceballs starred Bill Pullman as Lone Star, John Candy as Barf, Daphne Zuniga as Princess Vespa, Rick Moranis as Lord Dark Helmet, and Brooks as President Scroob and Yogurt. It's a parody of Star Wars, Star Trek, and Alien.
It's so good.
It is. I love that movie.
So good.
Gad, best known for his work on Broadway in The Book of Mormon, and as the voice of lovable snowman Olaf in the.
I was going to say let's call it what it is. Best known for being Olaf.
I would have probably written that where that sentence says Gad, first known for his work on Broadway, but best known as.
Yeah. Oh my God. Book of Mormon is an absolutely insane show, by the way. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
No, I have not had the opportunity. He's next set to make his directorial debut with a Chris Farley biopic starring Paul Walter Hauser as the iconic comedian. He most recently starred alongside his Book of Mormon co-star Andrew Rannells in Gutenberg the Musical on Broadway. This isn't Brooks' first time revisiting classic comedy in recent years. In 2023, he wrote and produced History of the World Part 2, a follow-up to his 1981 feature, Part 1 feature.
I never got through that.
I liked it. It was all right.
Decent?
It had its highs and lows. Brooks, one of the few entertainers to boast prestigious EGOT status, directed and starred in classics such as Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, and Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Yeah. I love Robin Hood Men in Tights. I haven't seen that in ages either.
Yeah, actually. It's been a while. I was thinking about it the other day, though, because I was watching a few minutes of American Wedding. And do you remember that one?
I mean, vaguely, I own it.
Okay. Do you remember the scene when they are going out to the club and they don't realize it's a gay bar, and Stifler gets into a dance off with this guy, and he, first goes from the classic early 2000s homophobia thing to the, well, why wouldn't you want to fuck me?
Right. Okay.
Like insulted by the fact that they're not attracted to him. And the guy that he gets into this whole beef with, who they end up dancing off and end up becoming friends, and then he tries to come and help them with the bachelor party, and that turns into its own fiasco. That guy was Little John from Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Okay.
I was like, I know this guy. I looked him up. I was like, okay, yep, that's why I know him.
Okay. I know. I do recall. Cool. I mean, I'm down to check this out.
I'm open to the idea.
Yeah, we'll see. Although, is it actually going to be? It doesn't sound like it's going to be in theaters.
I don't know. I mean, Amazon owns MGM, so like movies that are made for MGM, like they do come.
Oh, that's true. They don't actually like advertise the Amazon logo on the title card yet. I'm sure they will.
I don't think so. And
it's just going to be a tiger, and then a giant dick rocket.
MGM Plus also is that fictional-ish streaming service that we talk about that is a subsect of Amazon.
Just get out of here with that bullshit. So over it.
You're going to do the week trial to watch that Spider Noir show.
That's where Plex comes in.
Yeah, probably. I feel like I saw at some point some other blurb. It wasn't in this article, so I don't remember where I saw it, about like what they talked about doing, like the movie about, because obviously, like,
this didn't tell you anything.
Yeah. Well, no, not just that, but like it's a long time afterwards. Like, what would that story be with like kind of the Spaceballs having been dismantled? I'm sure they'll have some. I don't know if they're going to do like a Force Awakens type of deal with it.
God, I hope so.
Like that would be the starting point.
Yeah. And I bet you, I feel like with Josh Gad being involved, and also like I don't know,
and he's a huge Star Wars fan too.
There's a Disney relationship as well to potentially get some sign off on things, which would be incredible.
Well, and there is like established relationships there because the what's it called? The History of the World Part 2 was on Hulu as well, which is owned by Disney. So like Brooks has a relationship there as well.
Yeah, it's also Mel Brooks. I feel like you gotta you know.
Well, I didn't realize this. I was reading something, and this was separate actually from this, but I was reading something a couple weeks ago about when they made Spaceballs, though. Like the first one. And the fact that Brooks actually got George Lucas to basically sign off on everything they were doing. Like, Lucas actually liked the movie.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I mean...
Like, I guess they approached him to get his blessing to do it, and he was like, as long as you guys are like the point of it is like not just to be a hit piece, like the point of it is for this to be like something enjoyable. Like, yeah, you can point out flaws, like that's the point of parody, but like whatever. Yeah. And apparently Lucas actually liked it. So
that's cool. I got it. Like, yeah, it's so well done and it's so funny that like you'd have. I mean, I could see obviously like if it's your work that's being parodied, being frustrated by something, but like you have to see the kind of the brilliance in that movie. I think. And,
Yeah. What's the thing is, if it's done well, I would hope that one would be able to have a sense of humor about these things.
Sure. Yeah, that's cool. There was no mention of release time?
No, it's too early.
It seems like it's just like a project, and
no, they didn't even have like. Yeah, they didn't. I think that the thing I was talking about seeing a blurb was basically it might have been a quote from Gad talking about like what the origin for even thinking to do it was, where they were like, we had some cool ideas and like, but like they don't have a script or anything yet. Like they're like, at least as of the writing of this, we're like very early. Like 50,000 foot pre-planning type of stuff.
Gotcha. Was the father's brother's former roommate?
Yeah. I was your brother's father's cousin's sister's former roommate.
It's actually a prequel movie, and it's about that person.
That would be kind of funny.
Oh, man. Cool. Tell me about the sequel to Nosferatu.
Well, I mean, it's Nosferatu. I suppose this is a reimagining, right? The Robert Eggers is doing a Nosferatu movie. Nosferatu. There was a trailer that came out. I should have told you to watch that as well, but since we were running behind, I didn't bother because I actually had forgotten the trailer came out. Lily Rose Depp gets covered in blood, and Bill Skarsgård's vampire terrorizes the town in Robert Eggers' remake.
Of course it's a Skarsgård.
Yeah. Specifically this one. From Pennywise the Clown to one of the most famous vampires of all time, Bill Skarsgård is transforming into Nosferatu.
Fucking Aaron Taylor Johnson is in every goddamn movie.
He is. Upcoming, although not as many as Glenn Powell. In Robert Eggers' upcoming reimagining of the iconic 1922 German expressionist silent film. But horror fans will have to keep waiting to see Skarsgård's full appearance as Count Orlok, as the movie's first trailer from Focus Features continues to keep the vampire's complete look a mystery. Skarsgård is barely seen in the clip outside of a few quick shots, but his character's haunting presence looms large. Nosferatu is directed and written by Eggers, a favorite among horror fans thanks to directorial efforts such as The Witch and The Lighthouse. His last film was the Viking revenge epic The Northman, which was also released by Focus Features. Nosferatu is, quote, a gothic tale of obsession between a haunted young woman and the terrifying vampire infatuated with her, causing untold horror in its wake, according to the logline. Go on.
Looking, I definitely didn't see the 20s one, but I saw the other one.
It is one of those classic movies. That's one of those movies that like Nicolas Cage is obsessed with.
I saw the 79 one.
Okay. Is that with Christopher Lee? Or is that different? He played a vampire in something, or he played Dracula in something. I don't know.
I'm not sure. Maybe. Is there another one potentially?
I don't know. I actually wasn't. I knew about the old black and white one. I wasn't 100% sure if there was other.
Maybe I did see the old black and white one. Unless the 79 one was also.
I have no idea.
Werner Herzog is the director.
Oh, well, that's definitely not 1922 then.
No, that's the 79. I'm looking at the 79 one.
Okay.
Interesting. I mean, sorry. Continue.
Lily Rose Depp stars as Ellen Hutter, the woman that Nosferatu is obsessed with. Nicholas Hoult is Thomas Hutter, her husband, and a real estate agent who comes into contact with his new client, not knowing that the Count is a centuries-old vampire. Other cast members include Aaron Taylor Johnson as Friedrich Harding, Emma Corrin as Anna Harding, and Willem Dafoe as Professor Albin Eberhard von Franz, because Willem Dafoe is in every Robert Eggers movie, I believe.
Hasn't previously he played a Dracula in the past?
He looks like he could have.
Yeah.
Previously, Harry Styles and Anya Taylor-Joy were set to star as Thomas and Ellen Hutter, respectively, but both dropped out due to scheduling conflicts.
Sure.
Nosferatu is scheduled to release in theaters on December 25th.
I'm sorry. I'm like tied up in this movie right now because I know I watched a movie of this name, and I'm fairly certain it wasn't from the 20s. So it must have been the.
It's a silent movie. The one from the 20s is a silent movie. So
and the one that I watched was silent, but I just don't remember it being from that long ago.
Then you probably saw that one.
Oh, interesting. Cool. I'd watch this.
Yeah,
I find these types of these kind of creepy vampire things interesting. Not like the modern vampire stuff is fun and fun, but like this like kind of I don't know legacy vampire style. I'm more intrigued by.
Wait, you didn't see the one with Doug Jones, did you?
I don't know. Is that one also called Nosferatu?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure the movie that I saw was 2 VHS tapes, but I could be mistaken. I rented it for Blockbuster. I was too young to watch it, and we watched it anyway. And it was silent.
I'm trying to find out.
Maybe it wasn't 2. I have no idea.
What year was this?
IMDb is being a dick right now, and I can't actually search properly.
Everything else was fine, except for when I'm looking at this exact movie, which makes me wonder, was this even a full like feature-length thing?
The one from 79 is called Nosferatu the Vampire, which I feel like is not what I watched. The thing is, I remember what the box looked like, and none of these things on IMDb look like the box. So there's that. Anyway,
I'm intrigued by this movie. I'm not a horror guy generally, but this is interesting. Yeah. I still have not watched any of his movies yet. Dominic has been bugging me for a long time to do an episode on the Northman. I told him we will. It just hasn't happened yet, mostly because we haven't been able to nail down our own schedule, let alone to incorporate having a guest on for a movie that's like not a release that's like front of mind for either of us. But we will do it eventually.
The Northman. Yeah, I feel like he mentions that every time I see him.
Yeah. The Witch I had not heard of when it came out. The Lighthouse I was aware of when it came out.
I remember The Witch. I didn't see it. I remember it coming out. All right, Nosferatu. We'll check it out. Yeah, why not? Joker.
Yep.
2. So what is it? What's the actual title?
Folie à deux.
What does that mean?
Something about like having 2 faces or 2 brains or 2 minds, something like that. I forget.
Face is going to.
We looked that up. We looked it up when they announced the title.
I vaguely remember having a conversation about this. It was some abandoned from my memory.
Like French philosophical thing about like being of 2 minds or something like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
What's it called? The synopsis currently reads on IMDb: failed comedian Arthur Fleck meets the love of his life, Harley Quinn, while incarcerated at Arkham State Hospital. Upon his release, the 2 of them embark on a doomed romantic misadventure.
I'm gonna call upon his release. I don't think he's getting released.
It kind of didn't seem like that in the trailer, or at least it seems like he's going to spend a lot of time in, not prison, I guess, in the institution,
inside of his own mind, like the first movie.
That also, but I don't know. I mean, they also could just be front loading those scenes, and maybe he does get released on some technicality or some such. The whole thing with Harley Quinn historically has been that she's a psychiatrist or whatever, and she like determines that he's not insane, even though he very much is insane because she's in love with him. So
yeah,
I suppose that could be how this all plays out.
Sure, that is not what it seems like is going on in the trailer, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, but trailers are a liar sometimes.
Sure. So I reach into my pocket and I pull out another lie. Is this still a full-blown musical?
I think so. At least that's how it had been advertised for some time. It had
been, but none of the promotional material since, like none of the teasers, none of the this trailer that came out, none of it hints at that at all. And I have a feeling it's because they're trying to trick people into seeing it if they still are holding on to the fact that it's going to be a musical.
But it's weird because they made a lot of noise about it being a musical early on.
And everybody rolled their eyes. I was like, "This is weird. I'll see it," but everybody was mad about it.
Not like the hardcore fans, like they were. Like those people are not going to forget either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also, I mean, as long as I'm fine. Listen, it's a classic. I saw it on Broadway. Great. Les Mis, that style of musical is not overall for me. I'm totally fine with. Now we're going to do a song, a number. And then we're going to go back to talking like normal fucking human beings.
Yeah, I'm not about to sing the whole thing. I'm not about that.
It's a little discomforting to me. Mm-hmm. Fantastic show. The first 15 minutes, I did get a little anxiety. Like, why is this happening exactly this way? I wasn't aware that was a thing. Still ended up enjoying the shit out of it, but it's odd. I don't know why one needs to sing every word, but it's just sing the important words.
Yeah. I actually like that. I like that what you just said even better, right? Where like I want full like just straight up conversation, but then the punch of the sentence is sung. Like that's
Have like musical what's it called? Musical Tourette's where like
yeah.
we're just gonna sing really important sentences or phrases.
Oh, please. I would sign up for that movie. I want that.
I'm just picturing now like I'm picturing like and it's got to be something that's kind of like an outburst. I'm picturing The Godfather, very stoic scene early on when I forget the musician's name who comes to him, he's talking to him, whatever, and he's telling him, he's very serious to him, blah blah blah, and he just sings, "You could act like a man."
I was thinking more along the lines of "You broke my heart."
I mean, that works too. That is Godfather too. Anyway, looking at the cast, I did notice Brendan Gleeson in the trailer. I did not notice Steve Coogan or Catherine Keener or Ken Lung, but I'm a fan of all their work as well. Looks like this will have a slightly bigger cast. So there's still most of these people on here are unknowns because looks like Zazie Beetz will be back. She was in the first one, right?
Yep.
But and obviously Lady Gaga is playing Harley Quinn, which is a big addition. But sure. the first one, it was pretty much just him and a little bit of Zazie Beetz and a very small amount of Robert De Niro, right? Like I'm not missing anyone at major.
Why do I feel like there was? I'm pulling it up right now just because.
Yeah, so am I. Because I was like,
maybe the detective.
Who was the detective?
Sherry Wiggum.
Yeah, but he's that guy. I mean,
he is that guy. Yeah. Looking at it now, there really isn't much.
Oh, Brett Cullen as Thomas
players,
Wayne, but I wouldn't call him huge.
It wasn't a big part.
Role. Yeah. And Glenn Flesher and Francis Conroy are both character actors. So
yeah. So bigger, a larger cast.
Yeah.
It seems, but
we'll see. I mean, I didn't love the first one, but I'm intrigued enough to see this one.
I rewatched it within the past 6 months, and I do like the first one. It's a hard like I don't know how to actually categorize it. Like is not.
No, like is a better word because otherwise you would have gone with enjoy, and it's hard to say that.
Yeah, enjoy is not it. I guess
appreciate
I like it. I appreciate it. I appreciate the first one. It's interesting, like it shouldn't be a Joker movie, right? When that we talked about that.
This is one of those pocket universe things, right?
Yeah, it's just like it's just odd because it's like it doesn't like the Joker is a character in the Batman universe, and that there's significance and importance to that character being in that universe as the other side of the coin from Batman.
Yes, it's very definitive that while Batman can exist without the Joker, he's not quite the same, and it's really hard to have the Joker exist without Batman.
Yeah,
they are defined by each other.
I think that Joker is a really interesting movie, kind of exploring mental illness and the way it's treated by other people, riding the coattails of Gotham in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's things that I like about it, like pulling on some of the Batman universe stuff. I do like certain aspects of it, but it seems disconnected because having the Joker without Batman it shouldn't be a Joker thing. It should be its own thing. But it's fine. I am curious to watch this. I'm sure it'll be really interesting. I think the style of it, the cinematography, like the way, just the framing of everything, I really enjoy. I do enjoy that. I think it's a very captivating movie to watch. And it's very kind of heart pounding, like as things go on. You really don't know where certain things are going moment to moment. Even if you've seen it before, like they raise that tension really well. And on purpose, and I'm kind of curious to see how that all plays out again this time around, because it actually has like some of the framing and execution, like it actually feels like the Dark Knight universe, like not just the aesthetics, but like the actual like way certain pieces of it are shot. Where I do love that.
It's funny, maybe it's recency bias, but I actually am drawn more towards the Reeves one. It kind of actually reminds me more.
Really?
Which is all the more
that makes sense. Especially with the title card.
Yeah, but it's all the more disjointing because they take place in like not only like supposedly I guess different universes, but different timelines entirely. Where this movie looks like it's supposed to be more in like I guess the 90s or 80s or whatever. Probably earlier than the 90s, probably the 80s, I guess, versus the more recent, all the more recent Batmans taking place like present day, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. But I'm curious. Well, what is there? There's a release date on this.
I think October was what was on the trailer.
Okay,
October something.
Looking forward to checking that out.
Yeah, not the most inspiring news segment because I didn't actually know we were recording until today, and I got done with work a little bit later than expected. But that's all right.
That's fair.
We have a lot of consumption to catch up on.
We do. So with that being said, let us get into some consumption. Where do you want to start here? Do we start or end with Acolyte? I feel like it needs to be one or the other.
I guess let's start with it.
Let's start with it. Okay. So the last time we recorded was just the first episode.
Well, it was the premiere, which was the first two.
The first two. Okay. Cool. Why don't you go first?
Okay. So this is something that was we kind of checked on a couple of times during the course of the season as we were. So I don't think we texted after every single episode came out. No. Although probably more than half of them. And most of those conversations weren't even like super in depth. A couple of them were. Mm-hmm. I liked the season. Overall, I liked the show. I do have some very specific things, and it is probably hard for me to fully like quote unquote grade the show because it's hard to tell exactly like how much of this like matters or not, and like even if you made the changes I made, like how much is that really like changing a grade, so to speak. Mm-hmm. When you and me talked the other day, I said I would give it like a 7.5. What's more, what I think would inform better is to just kind of, as I did when I texted with you, to rank them, like just like how each season overall has made me feel. So I like Andor is like the clear cut, I think, best show that they've done so far. Mm-hmm. And I would say that even though there's some ups and downs and some things I like better from one versus the other, I kind of couple the first two seasons of The Mandalorian together into one grouping. Which is fair, yeah. And I would probably put this one behind that. Now, I would probably put a little separation from those first two to this one. But I would say probably this is next, and then you kind of got to give or take after. I mean, I maybe it would be season 3. I guess it would probably be season 3 of Mandalorian next. Boba Fett, which is so hard to kind of put together what that is, if it's another season of Mandalorian or not. It's kind of half a season of Mandalorian, half a season of a different show. Yeah. And then there's Kenobi, which is its whole own thing that's very firmly in last place. And I keep the animated shows separate.
Wait, what about Ahsoka?
Oh, sorry, actually, I totally forgot.
Ahsoka above this.
I don't know. Actually, you know what? I might put those basically parallel to each other.
Huh. Interesting.
I would say pretty similar. I liked how Ahsoka was structured. I liked how the season was structured. Mm-hmm. I didn't love all of the choices plot-wise.
Sure.
I was actually pretty much fine with all the plot of this season. I didn't like how it was structured. That was my biggest complaint in this whole show was I found the very macro of how the season was structured to be kind of disorienting. Yeah. Because it's funny, about midway through the season, we're going to talk full spoilers here. So far as how deep we're going to get into it, I don't know. But you and I spoke after the second episode? And I told you that, or did we talk about it on the second episode on this show? I said I felt pretty strongly that I thought Kamir was...
Yeah, we talked about that on the show.
Was the stranger. And that proved that to be correct. And there was probably 2 or 3 other major quote-unquote mysteries that I kind of nailed dead on as soon as I had the thoughts. And I saw an interesting quote from Leslie Headland, the showrunner about halfway-ish, sometime after episode 4 or 5, where she basically said, this show is a mystery, this a set of mysteries to be solved, but we aren't showing them in a way that is like this puzzle box thing. Like, if you're paying attention, you will get the answers. Which I'm proof that that's very much correct. The whole point of it was not to do it that way. It was to make it in a way that was interesting for you to follow along with the story, not to have you sitting there and going nuts with the theorizing. And I think there's something to that, because we've talked about this some around episodes 7, 8, and 9 of the sequel trilogy. I think a big part of why some Star Wars fans have been disoriented by those movies is you've had a long time to have preconceived notions about how these things should go. And it can be hard to reconcile when the things that come out are not what you expect them to be. And because it was something that I dealt with in episode 8. Now, I ended up really enjoying it when I saw how it all came down. I was like, this is not how I wanted it to be. And once I spent some time with it, I was like, but I think this may have been better than what I wanted it to be, because I don't know that what I wanted it to be would have been good.
Yeah.
It's what a me who's loved this since I was 5 would have wanted, which is probably a bit immature. And I thought they took a mature approach to it. And if I had to play pipe psychologist, we've talked about this or around this before, like, I think that most people our age, plus or minus several years, who didn't like some of what 7 and 8 had to offer. 9 is, I think, a different story, but what 7 and 8 had to offer is people who now have to come to terms with embracing this series at a different stage in their life. Because you don't get to trade on nostalgia anymore.
Yep.
Which is fine. Like, it just is, it is what it is. Like that. Yeah. Everyone will come to that or not come to that on their own terms in their own time. And that's fine. But I would, anyone who's had turmoil around those movies, I would recommend to just spend some time thinking about that. What was interesting about this project to start with was that there shouldn't have been very many preconceived notions. There was a pretty, not entirely, but a pretty blank canvas, right? You might see Yoda is a thing that you would think, because we know he's 800 years old when episode 1 comes out. So it's 100 years earlier. But other than that, no one we know should be alive. We know that it should be the height, quote unquote, of the Republic. We're literally calling this era the High Republic. We should see incredible force powers and this and that. But we shouldn't have a lot of expectations, and we should know that at the end of these stories, no matter who lives or dies at the end of a season, we know they'll be dead by the time those movies came around, because most species, other than a handful of alien species, don't live that long. The only issues I really had with this was I thought that the structuring of some of it was weird, and like how they chose to unveil certain things or not unveil certain things. The lengths of some of the episodes, although I will say that I thought every episode had a satisfying conclusion in the moment. Every episode felt like it was over when it ended. Even if I didn't like the run times and wish there could have been a couple more minutes. There was some storylines I would have liked a little bit more. There was a character who was introduced in, was it the last episode or the second to last episode? I forget. The senator who takes Master Vanestra to task. Good character. Absolutely stole that episode with his one scene. Had some freaking bars that he dropped on the Jedi in that line. He fired out his whole arsenal in those like 3 minutes of screen time. It was great. The one line he goes, "Good luck." Oh wait, no. What is it that you people say to each other? "May the Force be with you."
As he flips them off and leaves the room.
Yes. Mic drop, sunglasses on, walks out of the room. I would have liked to see a little bit more of that, because I think that during the course of the season, they told us but didn't show us about those things. So it could, if you weren't paying attention to those specific references to that, you might have been a little caught off guard by how hot he came in. But Vanestra was talking about that during the course of the season. It might have been nice, even if we only got him for 90 seconds somewhere earlier in the season, or saw a couple of, because if you introduce him pretty early on, and then you kind of get references throughout the course of the season. Senator, was it like something Cord. I forget what it was.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Senator, we'll just call him Senator Bars. Why not? Let's call him Senator Bars. Senator Bars is after
Mr.
us.
Senator.
He's waiting for an update. The senator is getting a little antsy. He's thinking about calling a special session. We would have gotten a little bit more tension to go along with the whole idea of this cover up and all that. But like those are pretty small things that I'm concerned with. I thought the characters were largely interesting, not all of them. The ones that people may or may not have had some mileage for early on those decks were cleared pretty early on in the show.
Sure. Looking
at you, the Yord and Jecki.
Yeah.
And all the Jed shirts who got killed in that episode. But when we talk about May and Osha, we talk about Soul, and we talk about Khmer / the Stranger / we'll call him Darth Teeth because we still haven't gotten his actual Sith name yet, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Those
or will we?
I suspect we will at some point.
Yeah.
Assuming they do a next season, which I know that
I was curious if he'll be circumvented by the sister and like not ever really achieve the title.
Well, so this is the thing, and so there's another thing. The thing I would address as far as what I've seen from the online discourse, and I've tried to not ever turn that tap all the way on because I'm sure I would get washed away in it, but you still got to kind of take the temperature here and there. There are a lot of people who forget that Legends isn't canon. It informs canon, but isn't always. Because there was a lot of people getting caught up. It seemed very obvious from the not the early stages maybe, but by the third episode that this was going to tie into the Plagueis thing. Sure. Which we obviously had confirmed in the final episode, which was awesome. But I saw a lot of...
actually, talk about that for a second, because like my brain went there, but they never say his name.
No, but that's Darth Plagueis. It is.
Okay. Is that like how do we...
100%, yes. That is okay. Yes.
I just assumed that, though.
Yeah. Well,
that is bad.
No.
Bad storytelling for people that are like casual fans.
No, if you're a casual fan, you don't have to know that's him. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
The thing is, there is one of the pillars of Star Wars canon that you and I have not embraced, really. Not to say we rejected them, it's just something we haven't interacted with. There is a lot of written Star Wars material that is canon now.
Oh, yeah.
So there is a book.
I know there's the description of him.
Not just description. No, there is a book that came out like 3 years ago, and it's got like a picture of like the Sith that we know. Okay. And they have a picture of him, and he's largely in shadow, but you see those red eyes. So you know that's him. It's an official canon thing from like 3 years ago. It's one of those like visual, like kind of like encyclopedia type books, I think. Okay. I saw a picture of the page with him on it a couple days ago. Gotcha. It's not a book I've read. We haven't really read any of the books. Now, some of the major novels I've read like synopses of, so at least I know the gist of what's going on, but I haven't really read them. So there's been a million comics that they've done too, I think. So like we haven't really embraced those things. So there are pieces of this that we're missing that like would be a deeper, richer thing for us to draw from. It's actually something I've appreciated from listening to during the time that any Star Wars thing is on. One of the subset of the Metal Arc shows, what they call the Mystery Crate, which is their producers, what they do their own weekly show. Amin El Hassan and Anthony Mays, who across a bunch of different stuff that I listen to, who both work for Metal Arc as parts of their jobs, anytime there's like a show on, they do a weekly recap of every episode. Or like when Star Wars Celebration is, they do like a big episode kind of going through whatever, like when there's a big announcement or whatever, they'll do a single episode to talk about it. They will talk about these things that are recent canon that you've missed. They do a section usually in every episode where they talk about some of the Easter eggs that you might have missed, because the two of them spend the whole week after each episode, or like the couple of days after each episode, researching these things to find out what was in this that other people found, that they found, whatever. So now I don't think they mentioned that one specifically, but I saw that online like a day or two after the episode came out. I was like, okay. I mean, like you knew that's what it had to be. Because the whole theme of this episode is about creating life, which goes back to the whole story that Palpatine tells to Anakin in the theater before he talks about his old master, Darth Plagueis. Now, he doesn't say it's his master at that time, but you're very clearly led to infer that that's the case.
Yep.
And I saw a lot of people being upset with that because, like, well, we never heard about this other guy. Forgetting about the fact that the whole point of the rule of two is that there's always a master and an apprentice. The master uses the apprentice to be his strong right arm to carry out his plans at this place or that place. And the apprentice learns and gains power from studying under that person and ultimately will try and kill him. But remember, the apprentice doesn't always kill the master. Sometimes the master kills the apprentice and takes on a new apprentice.
Right.
So this doesn't break canon. This is just his apprentice before Palpatine.
Yeah.
So we know that ultimately Chimera is going to die or at least disappear because some of them have disappeared in the past. Darth Maul, at the end of episode 1, we thought was dead. Turns out he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
But he's no longer the apprentice. He broke that thread because he took on 2 new apprentices after that.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no issue with this. And it makes... I really like how, as this story unfolded, I liked how they're leading us to the point of maybe this is not something that Plagueis initially found out about. But once he heard about it, well, who wouldn't want to live forever? Especially if you're a Sith. Mm-hmm. So I actually really liked how that's being the way that they introduced this to. It was a cool way to tell this story and be able to introduce this and head that direction whenever they choose to do so down the line. Yeah. And all of these things have been in support of trying to build a bridge from the prequels through the originals to the sequels where Palpatine's able to come back from the dead somehow. And we know about his fascination with Plagueis and creating life. And all of these things, everything with Grogu, everything with this, everything with the Bad Batch, have all been in service, and with Ahsoka, have all been in service of how did Palpatine come back from the dead. Mm-hmm. Whether you like that or dislike that, that's fine. But at least need to understand that that's what this whole phase of Star Wars has been. It's
the
creating
dead
that connective
speak.
tissue. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I talked a lot here.
No,
why don't you give me some of your thoughts? I still have more to say, but at this point I'm kind of disjointed, so I'm going to have to...
No, it's all good. Yeah, well, you could regroup. I like the storyline, the plot. I definitely did not like the execution, and I found large swaths of the 8-episode run to be just painfully boring to watch.
I never felt any of it was really boring.
I fell asleep on 2 episodes and had to rewatch. Like, okay. It was just the execution, in my opinion, was not good. We talked a little bit about like the jumping between like 2 episodes and then going to the past, and like just like how it just felt it was a little jarring, and then like it got even worse when they replayed that episode at the end of the season from a slightly different perspective. It just felt.
See, I actually liked that because
that's great.
Based on how they. I was getting on that point. I went off on a tangent and I lost it there. But that was my real only issue was they spent so much time the first 2 episodes hinting at the fact that there is some traumatic thing we're going to see in the past that led to all of this, which is great. Mm-hmm. That's great as a setup.
Sure.
But when we know that the format you've created is there was 4 Jedi that we're going to want revenge on, for sure we know that we're going to hunt down 3 of them and kill them before the end of this. Before things really come to a climax, and probably the 4th one as well. Mm-hmm. But really those 3, the 3 that are not Soul.
Yeah.
You spend the first 2 episodes killing off the 2 of the 3. At that point, when we've not shown any of the flashback, I would have gone straight to the killing of Kelnaka before getting the flashback. Mm-hmm. Or I would have been seeding like 1 to 5 minute clips of the flashback along the line of each episode. What I probably would have done was made this 7 episodes and cut episode 3 out of the thing entirely, and I would have taken the first 3 episodes and redistributed the 3rd episode along the timeline of the first 3 episodes, made them each a little longer.
I do not think that there is enough story here or enough story executed in these 8
I think is a little bit too much to do the movie. And when they showed the whole season, when they showed the whole sequence in episode 3, we get it from one side. Sorry. We get it from both sides, but we only get half of the story on each side. Mm-hmm. So we need to get the rest of it. So as soon as they presented it that way, I knew we were getting another episode later on, whether it be the whole episode or just a major chunk of one, that was going to be, this is what really happened. Like the ending of Clue. Mm-hmm. I knew that was what was going to happen when they chose to do it that way. And even if you did it my alternate way, I still think you can do that. Although even that episode, which was a really good episode on its own, when you just, within the context of it, if you take out of it, I don't want to have to see this again, just seeing how it all unfolded, I found it to be really compelling. I really liked that episode. With the exception of, like, Torben's motivations being pretty weak, honestly.
Oh my god, so weak.
I didn't have an issue with what they were trying to do overall. It was just, like, find a better reaon for him to freak out. That's really my only objection to it.
That's fair. I think it did not. The show did not land for me. I like the overall universe story that's being told. Things that you had already mentioned. I find it interesting. Like I think it is interesting. Like that these two characters were created out of nothing, and it is tying into that thread of force driven life. Emergence, I believe they called it.
Which also, to be fair, we never got any explanation in the prequels. Qui-Gon says, "I've detected a divergence in the Force," and let's just leave that as a total fucking dead end in Episode 1.
Yeah,
they go on to talk about midichlorians in every one of the other fucking movies, and people get mad about that. I who cares?
I don't know why people get so hung up on that.
Like, whether that's your preference or not, fine. But is it really worth getting all twisted about? No. So now they're calling it NCAT. It's the same fucking thing.
Up inside.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's literally the same thing. They just came up with an abbreviation. But who cares? It would not be the first or the last or whatever thing to tie their power to some sort of specific measurement. Whatever. That's fine.
Yeah. I still go back to I don't think there's enough. What was portrayed in the 8 episodes, I don't think was enough story for 8 episodes. I think that's my biggest problem with it. I think it needed to be tighter. I think that I would have been. I always prefer a movie, so take that with a grain of salt. But I would have also taken a 3-part, maybe hour and 20 hour long, whatever. Just tighten it up and make a better. If they did, like what you were saying, the killing of the first 3 of the 4, maybe flashing back in the middle and then going back and telling the rest of the story, that would have worked for me, and I maybe would have kept my interest a little bit longer and would have cut the fat probably significantly, because what the show did have a couple of really interesting characters, like you mentioned. I do agree with that. Really great choreography. Fantastic. Loved the choreography.
I was really disappointed with a lot of not all of it, but a lot of the choreography in the sequel trilogy. Mm-hmm. This is the best lightsaber fighting we've seen since the prequels came out. And it was awesome. And also, their decision to include so much, I'll call it quote-unquote, hand-to-hand fighting, force-aided hand-to-hand fighting, that was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I wish they would have
really cool stuff.
Meted it out a little bit better over the course of the series, because it was very backloaded to the second half. But what we saw was that sequence. Did you watch the video I sent you of Manny Jacinto training for the sequence from episode 4?
I didn't see you send that.
Oh, I could have swore I sent it to you. I know I meant to. Maybe I didn't. But they showed. I don't think it's actually him when they're doing the episode, because he's wearing the helmet the whole time. Mm-hmm. But maybe before they decided whether they were going to shoot that with or without it, he spent 3 months training for that scene or something like that. It was either a month or 3 months. I forget. And there's a behind the scenes where they're just using dummy stuff, on a padded room. They're not in costume. It's him. You see his face. He's not because it's just him. He does the whole fucking sequence with whatever 10 people he's fighting. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. The amount of work he put into
that's cool.
The amount of work. I don't remember if we talked about it when we did the first thing.
Saul, yeah,
learning English.
Yeah,
to do this.
Very, very cool.
Like these people took this really seriously. It shows. Like it's not perfect, but like there was a lot of care and thought poured into this show, whether it came out exactly how you wanted to. Like it didn't feel lazy or contrived or half-assed at all. You know what I mean? Like some of our think about our complaints from Kenobi, where it's like they just ripped off major things from other things in Star Wars. Like they frankly speaking, they like broke canon. I don't know how they allowed.
That was such a very
or like at least walked up to the line of what breaking canon would be. Like this had a clear attention to detail and effort and like reverence to the material, even where you could make a complaint and argument. I don't know where I land on this 100% yet, but I feel like I lean more towards being supportive of it. Because if you consider what the prequels are about, Lucas is telling a story about how the Jedi had everything. They had the galaxy by the balls for 1,000 years. They are the people who are on the side of quote-unquote good. And they fall on their faces and let bad just utterly rip them apart. And so this is a cynical story told about and Luke talks about it in episode 8, like the corruption and the weakness of the Jedi is what allowed them to give rise to one of the worst Sith Lords of all time. And you're like, along the way from episodes 1 through 3 and 7 through 9, like you do have to wonder, like, what does that mean? Like, how is that possible? This is a pretty compelling, like, snapshot in time as to how that could happen. What does that mean? The corruption and weakness and arrogance of the Jedi. They explicated those things throughout the course of the show. Oh, the good guys, even though they think they're serving the quote-unquote greater good, like in Hot Fuzz, means they might be doing bad things along the way, right? Mm-hmm. The whole idea of Hot Fuzz was we want to have the perfect town, and we're going to kill people to keep the illusion. And like that's kind of what the Jedi do. Yeah. They killed an entire coven of witches and kidnapped their child for the greater good.
Mm-hmm. The greater good. I completely agree with you on all of that. I do think that I like the story.
Yeah.
I really did not like the execution.
So we have the same experience. We have the same complaint. It's just it affected you more than it did me. We're talking about the same thing. It's how they chose to structure the season. That's the problem.
It's just painful. Like, and I do want to go back to one thing for a second. You had mentioned like an execution. Well, we're not trying to hide anything from you. Like it's there if you're paying attention. All for that approach. Don't pretend it's a reveal when it's a reveal though. Like when you do the reveal, like it's almost like you're pausing for audience to go, like they like actually do it. They like it pauses. I mean, the show pauses for that effect, and I'm like, stop.
They did it twice, but like from an emotional standpoint of the scene, it does work. Like
they hold on to it too long, like a lot of things.
Maybe,
but all right. So in the first 2 episodes, you had mentioned that you thought this character is probably the person in the mask, and I believe my take on that at that point was like I hadn't really given it much thought because I didn't at that point. I wasn't really thinking about who could this person be. I was just watching the show. But the next time,
by the way, that was what they were trying to do. That was kind of part of the quote was like, we don't want you guys caught up on the fucking message boards talking about what it may or may not be. We just want you sitting there and enjoying the episode.
But then when next time it comes around, it's like, yeah, it's probably this. And then of course it is that. The next thing that was, I feel like supposed to be a reveal was like, Venestra's old Padawan. I'm like, yeah, like I got that. Like,
well, a little less so. I mean, the big thing is him finally admitting, now not even admitting directly to Osha. He doesn't even realize she's hearing it. But like Soul's confession, I thought to me was how I would have said was the other big reveal. But that is an emotional moment. So they are playing it. They are literally trying to pull on your heartstrings. That's the point of that sequence because what it portends happening 90 seconds later is kind of a big deal.
Yeah. The thing is, the show has really great. It does have like a handful of really great moments. Yeah. And I think that's what hurts for me most about the execution. I have no intention of rewatching this, and I like to rewatch Star Wars things. I like to read. I like to watch movies again.
You don't think you might if season 2 comes out, you might not rewatch this quick just to refresh.
I might not. I'm telling you,
even just to see the fights.
Maybe I would watch a highlight reel of the fights. Those were cool. Like, I'm not going to forget what happened. Largely,
no, because I think they didn't spoon feed it to you, but they gave it to you in a way that was very understandable.
Yeah, it's like I could watch the second season. I'll be fine. But I don't know. I'd like to go back and rewatch it and like enjoy rewatching it. But I feel like if I wanted to go back now, it would feel like a chore.
I don't know. It's not that long. It's not that long of a commitment. Like, but I don't know. I ended up the good so far outweighed the bad. I mean, if for nothing else, Lee Jung Jae's performance as Soul was great.
I would rewatch that fight in the woods. Well, actually, one thing on that fight that was really just very irritating to me was like, guys, it's shorting out the lightsaber. You've all seen the other person's lightsaber get shorted out, and then that one person's got shorted twice. I'm like, you haven't figured this. Stop hitting the goddamn helmet.
So that's the thing is, I think you could forgive the fact that when he basically blew everyone up for a minute, so that it became pockets of him fighting, like picking off one or two people at a time. When one person does it and then the second person does it, that's a problem. Yeah. But again, like, the point of this was, right, like, and that's why, and I didn't come up with the phrase, but that was actually a rule of two thing from Amin and Maze, where they were not calling them red shirts, but they were calling them Jed shirts instead. And I was like, that's pretty fucking clever. Yeah. I like that. The whole point is that those people were brought along to be killed. That is a plot device that has existed for 60 years in Star Trek and now is a thing in this show as well. And it is a convention that is used in television and movies.
They foreshadowed that one guy's neck being broken by casting the person with just the largest Adam's apple. Is his neck already broken? But the triple stab, the blap blap blap,
brutal.
I was like, damn. I was like, okay, like even I'm like, relax. That was crazy.
Also, that was one of the few actual shocks in the show because I assumed all of the Jed shirts would get killed in that episode. And I also assumed Jecki or Yord would get killed. I did not see them both getting killed.
Yeah.
So when they both ended up dying, that ended up being like a legit shock, and specifically how and when Jecki got killed. And that was also such a badass way to reveal the second lightsaber thing. It's not exactly the same thing that Cal has where he pops it off. It's inside of the hilt, which was actually really cool.
And it's short.
Yeah. There's a tiny little dagger.
I thought that was interesting, that it was a little dagger.
I appreciated that they gave us some new stuff in here. We got the Vernestra's whip, although we really got to see it one time, which was a little disappointing.
Yeah.
Also, kind of going back to the point you were making before about...
we only got to see it one time because it's a logistical nightmare.
It is. It probably is, but... if you're going to introduce it, like, you might as well show it. You know what I mean? I do feel like we kind of almost got like a half chub on a Chekhov's gun situation where it's like by the very literal definition of Chekhov's gun, you did the thing, but not really.
Yeah.
But actually, like, to me, the reason I didn't even think for like the way that you said it, where it was like the reveal, it wasn't a reveal for us; it was a reveal for her. We had already figured it out at that point. Because again, if you're paying attention, you saw her use the lightsaber whip. You heard the way they were talking around it. And then you see his scar, which very clearly looks like a whip mark on his back. If anyone was surprised by that quote-unquote reveal, the point was not to reveal to us. It was to reveal to her because she thinks she's covering up for her friends. She doesn't realize, oh no, I really have to cover my ass.
The Passion of the Republic winding around over here.
Which is, what's giving us now one of two things that will, like a second season will tackle is one half will be Kamir and Osha going through their training and how Plagueis plays into all of that. Because, and I saw some people like, we've talked in the past about like literacy, and I don't mean literacy in the sense of literally physically being able to read. I mean like to be able to understand what you're watching, which again, we're talking about. This is not 4,000 level or 400 level like college class stuff. This is 101 stuff that this show has been doing. It's meant to be understood by pretty much everyone. If you are the Star Wars fan you think you are, You know about the rule of two, master and apprentice. You know about the acolytes. Whether or not you've heard that term before, we know about the Inquisitorius working under Vader, a sanctioned acolyte program under Palpatine. We know about someone like Asajj Ventress, who may or may not have been sanctioned by Palpatine, that Dooku had as his assassin. We know that Sith apprentices train acolytes, whether or not their master knows. And the whole thing is the master almost always knows, and the apprentices always think they don't know, right? Mm-hmm. Non-canon, but we know about the whole Starkiller thing and the Force Unleashed. Kamir thinks he's training an acolyte who's going to help him overthrow his master. That is one of the many ways that apprentices try to overthrow masters. Mm-hmm. I saw a lot of people being like, "Oh, well, how does Plagueis play into this whole thing? Like, why didn't he come and investigate that whole thing?" No, he's going to watch from afar and see what comes of all this. He's going to pick between the two of them.
Plagueis the wise.
Which, again, Palpatine learns from his master, because Palpatine does the same thing. Vader, go see if your son can be turned to the dark side. He could be a powerful ally. That's doublespeak. He could be a powerful ally. Like, oh, buddy, maybe we'll disband the rule of two. Yeah. No, really what he's doing, he's planting the seed in your mind. Vader, go train him. Whichever one of you is strongest, he's going to be my apprentice. Mm. And Vader is thinking, he could be a powerful ally. Me and my son could rule the galaxy together. Like, it's all meant to be this whole triangle of the same thing. Plagueis is watching them. He's going to let that play out because, I wasn't aware of this Virgins in the Force. Live forever, you say? Maybe I might like to steal your guys' research. I'll kill you both. Yeah. I'll live forever, and I'll find some other apprentice. Maybe I won't need one. I live forever. Like
thousands and thousands of years on repeat. Maybe if we do it, it'll work.
Yes. Well, it's the Tobias. Oh, it never works. Yeah. But maybe for us. Yeah. Well, no, the whole thing is that it does work sometimes. Sometimes the apprentice does kill the master. Palpatine, we know, kills Plagueis. Mm. Isn't it ironic? He could create life, but he couldn't save himself.
Yeah.
Let's go back to something. Let's go back to something good. What did you think about watching a Wookiee Jedi fight?
That was pretty cool. I liked. I think possessed Wookiee Jedi fight was pretty sick.
Right.
Pretty cool concept.
Pretty much all the fights were sick.
I would like a little bit more of the mechanics of why all the witches died. Hive mind?
Feedback?
Feedback.
I mean, like, kind of, right?
I guess, yeah.
I mean, yeah, hive mind feedback, sort of feedback loops thing.
It was like we're all, ooh, and then we're dead.
Well, because she like blasts them out of his mind or whatever.
Yeah. I just that stuff though, like those are the things that I feel like that are really interesting. So it's like, why? Like I want to know a little bit more about that. That was interesting. Tell me more. And they're like, nah, they're all dead now. I was like, all right, cool. Also, one thing that kind of was bothering me is like, you started the fire. It's like, there's a secret. You don't know what happened, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, well, you did start the fire. Like after all of this, it's like, we're going to pretend like maybe it wasn't you. Maybe something else happened. It's like, no, you started the fire.
Well, the intent, cool. The intent is what matters, right? Like the way that was portrayed the first time was like, she's killing her. And the second way, it's like, oh no, this is a tragic accident, which like it largely was because she tries to put the fire out and fails horribly. Maybe look for some water.
Tragic the Virgins.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there was more good than bad. There was some bad, but like some of it was like, I don't know, like how much she gonna. The thing about editing is like it's hard to see a good one until you see a bad one, right? Like when a great movie is great, you don't sit there thinking of, this was edited really well. Ultimately, when you go back and like think about it, once you see a movie that was like, that could have been good if for other reasons they did this or didn't do that, maybe you can start to pick between the other, but like you just think of it as part of the writing and the directing, right? You don't really think of it, but it's, unless there's like one of those movies where it's like, that was 3.5 hours long, it probably would have been good in 2:45, and then you could pick, maybe a little this scene, a little that scene, we could have tightened here, could have tightened there. In this one, I think literally if you took everything that happened on screen and you cut it in a slightly different order, it might have raised it a whole point for you. Like, that's my supposition.
Yeah, it could be.
Because it sounds like you liked a lot of the plot points.
I do.
You like the action. You like the acting.
Like the story. I like the story. I just thought
so to me, that's
the telling of the story was painful in certain aspects.
Which to me, the reason it didn't affect me as much as it did to you is the total runtime of the show wasn't that crazy anyway. So like, if it was long and there was long sequences, like there might have been a moment here and there where it's like, I could have done without that or whatever. But it was like, it's a moment of 2 seconds.
I think the biggest problem for me is it was reminiscent of, like I think years ago, like with like early seasons of the Arrow and Flash, and maybe they might have stuck with this the whole thing, but like we were talking like 24 episodes.
Yep, it was one of those old school shows that was like literally like we're going to do this for half of a year. It
felt like that to me. It was only 8, and it felt like that to me sometimes because it just wasn't enough for that. It's just execution. We don't have to harp on it any longer. That being said, for hundreds and hundreds of years, probably thousands of years in this universe, people have been falling down pits and being presumed dead. When are we going to stop assuming the person is dead who fell down the pit?
Because no one ever tells the other person, oh, by the way, like we never got Soul telling Obi-Wan Kenobi, make sure that you check out for people who fall in pits. Like, they're probably not dead, especially if they're Force users. Second,
why do we keep going back to this well?
Literally.
It's just really, but this one was, I feel like, the most egregious one. It's like, I think we could all see the bottom. Like, it wasn't.
Well, the thing is, the way they shot it initially, it seemed like it went down forever. And to be fair, it did. It's just they had one of those exhaust vents like in Cloud City, and it sucked her. Now, the problem is, the Cloud City one, there's like a curving tube, and then it like cuts into like the wall there, versus she gets sucked by the vacuum exhaust at a 90-degree angle from the fall that she was having. I'm a little skeptical on that one.
She used the thread.
Also, Soul was a Jedi Master, and he could have held 2 people up with the Force. 2 small people.
100%.
The problem is he's an idiot, and he was holding the bridges up.
He didn't hold them both because of plot.
That's really what it is. Because he kept saying, I wanted to save you both. Well, that's a lie. We know it's a lie. He didn't want to save them both. He wanted to save Osha, and if May survived, that's fine too.
That's actually, you can even explore that a little bit further, because that's interesting. It's like, it would be really much easier for me if you weren't here.
That's literally what it is. Yeah. Because think about it.
Oh no, I dropped the bridge.
Think about it. He lies again later, even in the middle of his reveal, where he says to her, if you watch the scene, he's gonna kill May when he's chasing her with the ship.
Yeah.
He's going to run her down and kill her. Which also, by the way, very cool sequence there too. We didn't talk about that. Chasing her through the ring of the planet. Thought that was pretty cool.
Oh yeah. That was neat.
He was going to kill her. And then when they get there, he's like, no. I want to bring you both here because now I can prove the virgins thing to my people. It's like, well, only because you accidentally didn't kill her. Because like 20 minutes ago, you were going to kill her and then you weren't going to be proving anything to anyone. Mm-hmm. Because you wouldn't have had her body to show them the identical M counts and the virgins and the this and the that. It's a matter of convenience to you now, which is, again, just showing you how. And it goes back to what Senator Barrs was talking about, where he was like, I think that the great lie of the Jedi is that you can't control your emotions. You're saying you can. You're acting like you're striving to. You're advertising to everyone, including yourselves. You're lying to yourselves. You can control your emotions when you very clearly can't. Soul has never, ever been able to control his emotions, which is why he wasn't able to teach his Padawan how to control her emotions. Because, and they didn't fully explore this, I don't know if that's right or wrong, but when she finally decides to choke him, he says, I loved you. Which opens a whole can of worms there.
Yeah.
He didn't love May, and how could he love this girl that he knew for 4 seconds at the time he chose to save her?
He just turns to May during that scene. I always hated you the most.
Well, I've always loved all my Padawans equally. 90 minutes earlier. I never cared for May.
Oh, man.
At first blush, when Osha kills him, I was like, oh, come on, man. He's a powerful Jedi Master. We just watched him almost kick his fucking ass. He's not going to get choked to death. Once I kind of calmed down and embraced the scene for what it was, I was like, no, this makes sense. He's lost all control. He's been racked by grief for however many years. He is truly shocked that this person he loves doesn't and can't hear the fact, as he also grips the fact that he betrayed her so deeply at every level. And I assume he just kind of let himself go. I mean, I think
that it's a combination, I think, of that, and she's also going through.
Well, she's much more powerful,
transforming, right?
Than he realized. But also, I think a part of it is that he, and I hate to say this, lost the will to live, much like Padme. I don't know why I added an extra E in Padme.
Padme.
Now, and to go back to that scene, because I thought that was great. I thought that was very, and allow me the pun, gripping scene. As like the emotion swells in that scene, she chokes him out. We've heard the term bleeding a kyber crystal before. To actually see it play out that way, I thought was pretty cool.
That was neat. Yeah.
I was a little confused initially. I thought it was a really cool move when he chops the emitter off of Khmer's blade to disarm him. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
No, we've never seen anything like that. I mean, we've seen lightsabers break before, but not with that sort of intention. Like, he does that on purpose, which is pretty cool.
It's like, I can short out lightsabers too, dick.
Yeah, right? Like, kind of, right?
Yeah.
And I love how for a second we see Khmer grab the helmet like he's going to use that as the weapon, which that could have been cool for 10 seconds, and we don't get that, but that's okay. Like, but then he loses his lightsaber, and you see it crack, and I thought the whole thing was going to be, both their lightsabers are broken, and now, like, kind of going back to the Dooku Yoda thing, when he says, it's obvious that our master of the Force, we will have to decide this with a lightsaber or whatever. I thought this was going to be the inverse of that, where it's like, no more lightsabers, whose mastery of the Force will be better. And then it turns out to be they wanted to show the exposed crystal, which is cool. I remember in the moment being kind of confused when things don't go that way initially, when May and Osha show up.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I said, I liked it. I didn't totally, completely love it, but I enjoyed it. I probably, if and when the second season comes out, because I know this was a very expensive show to make, I fear whether or not they'll make a second season, but considering how committed they are to High Republic stuff.
I think they have to.
I think so too, if they're going to continue doing any and all of these things with the High Republic, which so much. They have a game that's coming out in the High Republic. They've written 1 million books and comics with a bunch more coming out in that era. They've leaned in heavily into it with Jedi Survivor. I suspect we may get more of it in Jedi 3, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
With like examining that timeline. This was, I think, meant to be the kind of crown jewel of all of that. I'd be disappointed to not see a second season. Like, I think even you having the issues you have, you want to see where this story goes, right?
Yeah. Like I said, I have no problem with the story. It was just, and I do think that they can recover on execution. Hopefully they'll take notes.
And the structure of that show will be different than this one. Yeah. It's not something you would repeat.
For sure. Sorry, I just keep thinking about, we've made a lot of Arrested Development references in this past topic. I do have one more for you, because when in the finale, when Minestra opens the door and says, like, Master, we need to talk, or something like that, all I could hear was like the worst fucking council members I have. Like, it's just like you can almost see Yoda sigh.
I have to find you, because we didn't get a chance to talk about this, Ki-Adi-Mundi being in this, and like I think they meant to do that as like a tease to be like, you guys think Yoda's gonna be here? Nope, Ki-Adi-Mundi's all you get. And of course we gave the people what we wanted at the end. We're gonna give you 9 seconds of the back of Yoda's head. But I actually have to find you the episode of Rule of Two where they talk about that episode with Ki-Adi-Mundi in it, because the way they clown him so hard in that fucking episode, I was dying laughing. And it's like such a niche thing. Like, I'm going to have to send it to you because it's fucking funny.
I'll have to check it out. I just want to go back for a second to the weird way you said Padme. Have you seen the meme that's it's Padme, Pad, Mimi?
Yes.
I love that comes across my my Instagram flow of nonsense on a weekly basis, and every time I chuckle. It's just so it's so perfectly done, it's so stupid. It's
kind of like the way that I continue anytime I think, which is like, it's not super often, but I would say about monthly since I saw it. Whenever an occasion comes that I think of the lightly fucked oil, I start laughing out loud. I will start laughing out loud anytime I think about that fucking thing, and it will make me go back and find it and look at it again and read it. It is endlessly funny to me. There's only like 12 words written on that page. I crack up. It's horrible drawing. It's awful. I die every time I think about it.
Oh man. Well, that's Acolyte. That's all the Star Wars we're getting this year, right?
Nope, we're getting Skeleton Crew at some point.
Oh, okay.
Jude Law show.
Okay.
Mandalorian era.
That's happening this year?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Sometime in the fall, I believe.
More of that then.
I think at some point there was like a hope Andor would be at the end of this year, but I think it's going to be early next year.
Take your time. Just take your time.
Well, it got pushed back just with the strike thing, but like I'm 99% sure they're done shooting it.
Oh, okay.
Like I think they're just in like post-production effects and all that stuff, but like I'm pretty sure that I saw at some point that they're done shooting it, so like it could come out.
I would rewatch that.
I am going to rewatch that season before. Yeah. I loved it so much, and now it's also been like 2 years, so.
Yeah. Speaking of rewatching, I'm going to move us on to a new topic.
Okay.
We've talked about this a little bit over the past few weeks since we've recorded, but I somehow fell down an X-Men rabbit hole.
Yes. We were talking about that in the last episode.
It started, I think, before I was sick, where I was like, oh, I haven't seen the original X-Men movie.
No, it definitely started before you were sick, because we talked about it in the last episode. For sure.
Okay. Like, so I watched X-Men.
At that point, you had been into, I want to say, Days of Future Past.
Oh, okay, cool. So I was making my way. But X-Men X2, really good movies. And I was like, oh, like it was kind of refreshing to rewatch them. I was like, oh, these are good. And then, I forget what came next. Was Wolverine next?
Yeah, and you were very displeased with that, which rightfully so. Oh no, sorry, that was the last one you saw. I want to say was Wolverine, because I think you hadn't watched the Wolverine yet.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, that's exactly. You're right. So I watched Wolverine, and it was whatever. And then First Class? Phoenix. What was the third one called? X-Men United? No, that was the second one.
Oh, X-Men: The Last Stand.
The Last Stand. Watch The Last Stand. It starts to dwindle. It's still interesting. It's still it's got fun moments. It's a little bit too big in certain aspects, like where they like kind of go over the top. But it's fine. All in all, it's not the worst. I remember in my mind I would have been like, oh, that's a terrible movie. And then on rewatching, I was like, it's fine. It's not horrible. And then I watched the Wolverine, right?
Yeah.
Is that the it's because it's Wolverine X-Men Origins, and then it's the Wolverine, because why not? And I watched that, and it has its moments. It's interesting. I'm fairly certain I finished it while I was sick, because I still don't remember what happens. But then largely it was like, I also know it doesn't matter, because we're about to reset the timeline. And then I watched First Class. And First Class is a really good movie.
Yep.
I really like First Class. Knowing that it kind of wipes out some of the other really good stuff that came before it. It's like that big of a deal, but or that we're going to eventually with Days of Future Past, because I know where it's going. First Class was excellent. Really fun. Great job of like, let's go earlier. Let's like do like, doing origin later on in the timeline of your cast of characters can be difficult. And I actually think that they stuck the landing pretty well, considering. And then Days of Future Past is just a bonkers movie.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's just interesting.
I thought it was quite good. I think most people really liked it.
It's just the thing that I kept getting hung up on was just like how I remember, especially the first time I watched it, and this time around, I was like, how does this do we reconcile any of this? Like, there's so many continuity problems with all of these movies at this point that I was like, do we just ignore it? And then I started looking into it a little bit deeper, and I didn't know this at the time, but that is like a thing in X-Men comics history, is continuity errors.
Well,
and I was like,
it's a thing in all of Marvel comics.
But it seems I don't know too much about like what these articles were referencing, but it seems like more of like it's like in the X-Men DNA.
Yeah.
And I was like, that to me, and I almost had like a new, but I have like a new appreciation for the fact that they went that way. And like they did that, and they just like hand wave some stuff away, and just focus on what we're doing right now. And if you do narrow your focus,
the funny thing is, if I remember though, like they make a point of when they send him back in time, he loses the metal, right? He goes back to having the bone claws, which is like being very strict to the continuity.
Yeah, which is interesting. I mean, and then I guess like from there on, him getting the adamantium is going to be different than I guess how it happened in the previous timeline, which is fine.
Or does he get him back at all?
Well, he does.
I never saw Apocalypse.
Okay, well, he does. He is in Apocalypse for a moment.
Okay.
Getting his breaking out of Alkali Lake and and such. But I watched Apocalypse again, remembering I think I had only seen it one other time, and it's not good. It's not a very good movie. It's clunky, and they kind of lost. They lost like some. There's some heart that's just missing from it, and then whatever like remainder of an ember that was left is just snuffed out by the next movie, Phoenix. Dark Phoenix.
Which I always forget is a sequel to that movie. I keep thinking of it as being not a standalone, but for whatever reason, I want to associate it more with New Mutants, and like that's not accurate.
It's a direct sequel, and I mean even that has its moments, but we end up like Raven is pissy, and Charles has a little bit too much of an ego, and we're just in this constant loop for like 4 movies, and I'm like, you don't really have anything new to say. Got it. And that's where it really trailed off. And I just thought it was interesting. Like I think I'm like only like a third of the way into my rewatch of is it Dark Phoenix? Is that what it's called? Phoenix?
Sure. No, I'm pretty sure it's Dark Phoenix.
X-Men Phoenix movie. Which is definitely going to be not as good this time around because I'm not watching it on a plane. But
I never saw that one either. So
yeah, but it's just strange. It's just so interesting. It's like I still have an appreciation for pockets of the X-Men universe, and like these things don't end up souring it because they could like just completely sour the whole experience by the time you get to this point. But no, you just got to remember that there's a good pocket in there of good stuff, and then they lost their way, and it's fine because we'll just reset the timeline again. We'll just do something else this time.
I am excited. Well, as we're recording now, we're like a day or two away from Deadpool versus Wolverine and Wolverine, whatever. I'm pretty excited for it at this point. The marketing campaign has been too long. I don't need to. No marketing campaign for any piece of media needs to be as long as they are, no. And some things are starting to move in this direction. Something I probably talked about with you when me and like Brian were talking about it like last year, the year before. That he was like super excited for Starfield, and he was like concerned that they were starting like the marketing so late. And I'm like, but why? Who needs to be aware of a video game for 18 months before it comes out?
Right.
It's really the last, I mean, I would argue it's the last month, but call it the last 3 months before a video game comes out to like get the marketing arm up. Like we don't need fucking like crazy trailers and in-depth articles about it a year plus before it comes out. You don't need a movie trailer a year before a movie comes out.
Yeah.
Put a teaser out 3 months before the movie comes out. Put a trailer out a month before the movie comes out. People buy the tickets and go to the movie, or they won't. Like it,
right?
Like you're wasting so much money and time and effort on all that.
I agree with you. But yeah, on this basically has turned into, well, I might as well finish this whole run before I go see the new Deadpool movie, because really I just have to finish Phoenix and watch Logan, and I will have rewatched all of the stuff that might matter.
I suspect New Mutants won't matter.
I'm not gonna bother with that. But it's time. I think I'm ready to rewatch Logan.
I've caught pieces of it, but I like I said after we talked about it, I don't know that I'll ever actually sit down and watch that movie again. It's too depressing.
It's very depressing, but I want to watch it again.
It's a fantastic movie. It's just too depressing. I don't think I need multiple versions of that.
I know that they're going to be pulling on stuff Like, and I'd like to have it a little bit more fresh in my mind because I'm sure there's going to be some great jokes.
I'm sure there will. I'll probably remember them when they happen.
Well, even in the second Deadpool movie, when he's got the little like snow globe Logan impaled on the tree that he's holding when he blows himself up, it's just really stupid, but I love it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fun romp. Hopefully,
I certainly hope so. After all this time, it would be disappointing for this to come out and not be good. You know?
Yeah. I'm still holding fingers crossed that they still somehow fix the MCU by releasing this movie.
I am skeptical of that. I don't know how.
They're not going to. I'm just fingers crossed.
Let's just enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it'll be enjoyable. And I've never had quite the same level of love that so many other people had for the first two movies. I like them. Mm-hmm. I do think they get more regard than they deserve, but that doesn't mean I don't enjoy them and like them, and I'm not looking forward to this one, because I am.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. That's out yesterday? Today?
Well, you mean for when we publish this, or when we're
right now. I think isn't it out? Was it a Wednesday release?
Oh, was it?
Usually
know. It's Thursday, right?
It's probably out tomorrow, so this has been happening. It's getting earlier and earlier every year, like how early they release something. So it used to be like, it was like Thursday midnight because movies come out on Friday. And then it was, let's just 10. Do it all of Thursday.
Well, it was Thursday 10 for a while, then it was Thursday 7, and now that it was like all day Thursday.
Yeah, and now there's like the Wednesday midnight.
Wednesday? You think so?
Oh, I'm fairly certain that you can go see it tonight.
Oh, okay. I heard like Gianna said that her boyfriend's going to see it tomorrow, so I assumed it was.
Yeah, I gotta get there. I want to see this before it gets too late. I'm looking forward to it. What else are you consuming?
Let's go with a quick one here. Mm-hmm. I have resumed my pursuit of the bear. I was hoping to finish the second season by the time the third season was out. I failed. I watched, I want to say, like the first 2 episodes before the third season came out, and then didn't watch it for like 2 weeks. And then caught an episode. I watched 2 episodes on the train to and from the city on Saturday. So I'm like halfway through the second season, maybe more than halfway through the second season at this point. The last episode I saw, the first of the 2 that I watched on the train was the one when what's his name goes to Copenhagen.
Yep.
And then the one after that was pretty tired.
Because Marcus goes to Copenhagen, right?
Yeah. The one after that I was pretty tired, so I probably didn't retain everything I watched, honestly. But it was the one where he's out with the girl the whole time.
Okay.
When Carmi's out with the girl like the whole episode, basically.
Yep. Cool.
Which I think is the gist of all I need to know from that episode.
Yeah, for the most. Yeah.
I was very tired. It was a long day.
It might be worth a rewatch just for some of that relationship building, but it's you could probably draw enough conclusions from it. I really like the second season. We're done. We finished it. We finished the third season. It's the third season is the weakest of the 3.
I've heard mixed stuff.
It's not bad. It's the first episode of the third season I think is bad.
Oh.
But it's not for me. I get what you're doing. Do your thing. Have your artsy moment. It's a really long, anxiety-inducing recap of 2 seasons of television. I didn't care for it, and then the show starts.
So that's odd to me because one of the big hallmarks of this show, or what is becoming this, at least in popular discussion of the show, is that as seasons shrink in length and development times expand, where, we used to get, when you had a show that ran for like 7 seasons, it usually aired in like the fall every year or whatever. I mean, like, and now that's not happening, despite the fact that we're not making 24 episodes of show anymore. We're making like 8 most of the time. Mm-hmm. And a lot of shows are now taking 18 or 24 months to come out between seasons, which is kind of like confusing.
Yeah.
What is cool about the show is a season came out, and then a year later, another season came out, and then a year later, another season came out. Back the way it used to be.
Yeah.
Which, like, they're managing their timeline properly. And to think, they actually had a writer's strike in the middle of that, and they still managed to get out this new season. So, like, I will give them credit for that. Like, we're making a condensed show and we're doing it in an appropriate amount of time.
Yeah, and that may honestly, all of that may have something to do with it, because I'm curious if the way that it ended up playing out was the intention from the original set of writing, because it's very clearly, even though it's the same length, it is half a season.
Oh, okay.
Just story wise, like, it ends with a to be continued, like. It's 7 whatever episodes, but it's like you're clearly ramping up and you're only halfway there to what you're trying to do.
Well, I was saying it was odd that you would say the first episode would be a recap, because like it hasn't been long enough. Like
That's what I thought.
Other shows are doing stuff like that because it's been like 2 years.
Yeah.
Or like look at like when the second season of House of Dragon came out. Like before the episode came out, like the first episode came out, they released like a 10 or 15 minute like primer, because it's like it's been 2 years since you guys watched the show. No one remembers anyone's names, because as much as that joke was made about the first show, most of the people didn't have the same names, right? Most of the names were pretty dissimilar. They were like esoteric and arcane and all that, and like so like good luck remembering them, just because there were so many of them and they were weird names. But most of the people didn't have names that were similar. Here, they all have variations of 3 of the same names. And so like good luck remembering all of them. So I understood like why you would do it. Now, technically, that wasn't an episode. It was like an interstitial that was created before the episode came out. You could choose to watch it or not watch it. That's fine. It was there if you wanted it. But like they didn't spend the whole first episode saying, "Hey, remember how this all happened 2 years ago?" They just did the show from episode 1.
I said like even though I found the first episode of it to be like a little bit frustrating, to the point where like when the first episode finished, I was like, "Uh-oh." But then it gets back on its feet.
This is the bear?
And it does the bear. Yeah.
Okay.
But we get a lot of the Fack brothers in the 3rd season, and I love them.
There is a second one, because the girl whose name I'm just never going to remember. I just don't remember yet. The girl that Carmi starts dating or whatever. She was talking about the Facks, and I was like, who the fuck is she talking about? I never retained the fact that guy's name was Fack.
Oh, okay.
He's just that guy. The guy who's like there in the background all the time.
There's the one that's like the maintenance guy that's fixing things, that is like the inspiration for the show.
Yeah, that guy doesn't have a name.
Yeah, he's Fack. He is a real chef.
Is he? Oh, so he's the
yeah.
I didn't know.
I'm pretty sure it's like I don't know, like he's producer or whatever. It's like him. Like it's his thing.
I've never looked up what the actor's name was to be able to associate, because I know I've seen the names of like the producers and stuff like that. But yeah, never registered who the character's name even was.
Yeah.
And she kept talking about, I was like, who the fuck is she talking about? Am I supposed to know who that is? And then like the next episode or later that episode, like one of them like turns to him and says Fack, and I was like, wait, that's who she was talking about?
Yeah. But like his brother, one of his brothers is in the first and or second season.
I probably didn't realize he was his brother.
Okay.
I thought it was just because occasionally they have the extended group of maintenance or like help us build this. Like,
yes,
it's one of those guys.
Yeah,
but like none of them is ever referred to by a name.
So a third one is introduced in the 3rd season. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe every season a new fact is added.
I feel like this is like how in Gears of War,
it's the facts of life.
I feel like how this was in Gears of War, where like Carmine dies in the first one, and then his brother dies in the second one, and then there's a third brother in the third one. Spoiler alert, he doesn't die. And then in the 4th one, it looks like Carmine's gonna die. The third Carmine's gonna die. He doesn't. Plot twist, his niece does?
Oh, man. I will say, you know how they do a really good job of having cameo. I'm
starting to learn that.
Yeah. Well, especially in the 2nd season, each episode I'm pretty sure has some big person in it. No,
I don't remember if there was in the first episode, but like, what's his name from We're the Millers and Guardians 3 was in the Copenhagen episode. That was cool. There was someone who was probably famous in that episode as well, who as a chef who was talking to what's her name, and I just like don't know who he is. Okay,
well. What I'm getting at is the third Fack in the 3rd season is one of these roles, and it's nice. Great. It's great. I can't wait for you to get there. It's such a fun. It's the best episode of the season. Is like the 3 of them dealing with this thing that's going on this episode, and it's really funny to me.
Like I know any episode now, like Jamie Lee Curtis is going to be in it, Bob Odenkirk. Like I know other famous people cameo in it, like
John Mulaney.
Sure.
Yeah. It's fun. It's a fun show. Yeah, looking forward to that coming back again. Waiting another year for that and seeing the rest of the
I'm sure I'll finish the third season before the fourth one comes out.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, it was nominated for fucking everything, so there's definitely gonna be another season that comes out.
I'm on the speaking of nominations, I'm on the fourth season of The Wire.
Oh yeah, we talked about it.
We're making our way through.
You guys were like, I want to say halfway through the first season when we spoke.
I think so. Like I think so. So that's cruising along. This is the school one. I think we're only like 2 or 3 episodes into the season. You
remember how I hinted that Presbyliski's not a very good cop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he not a very good teacher either?
No, he's a good guy.
Okay.
Wasn't a good cop.
Yeah. The cap of his cop storyline in the third. I was like, yikes!
That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Yikes! Not good.
So what I will say is, he's certainly a better teacher, and he's doing his best. And the whole point of the season is to show you that doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
Not his fault. Like it's just it's not.
Yep. Yeah, I could see that that's where it's going. But yeah, it's been it's a really interesting show. I will say, spoilers for season 3 of The Wire. Every once in a while, they'll do a thing, and you're like, I guess that person's gone now. Like when I guess in season 2, when does D'Angelo die? Like
early-ish season 2.
Season 2. It was like when I was like, oh, is this going to be like a thing where like the guy didn't actually because it like the way that the strangling happens, it almost seems like he like
away from it or whatever.
Yeah, like, it almost seems like he like pretended that he would be like that. My only way out is to play possum, and I thought maybe like there was going to be like some sort of like this protection thing that comes into play, but like I was like, we'll see, and that was the end of an episode, and we were like, we'll see in the next episode. It's like a funeral. I'm like, okay, yep, I guess case closed. That's we're done here. He's gone. Yeah. And then something very similar but more definitive with Stringer. I was like, I see what we're leading up to, and then when it happens, I was like, we're done. We're done here. We are good night, sir.
Yeah. How fucking awesome is the Brother Mazzoni like storyline leading up to him and Omar's partnering up?
Yeah.
That whole scene with the two of them holding the guns on each other, like negotiating and shit like that. Incredible.
So good. I love the character, Omar's character.
Oh, he's fantastic. I miss Michael Kenneth Williams. He was so great.
We do reference the way that he wears his tie in the first season in the court appearance. It's just so good. So good. But yeah, anyway, we've been enjoying it. It's good. Definitely a show like we'll end up watching a few episodes and then it's like we got to take a few days off.
That was I went through that stretch. I know I talked about it where like I think I watched Sopranos and The Wire back to back, and it's like I need to give myself some like palate cleanse in between there, where it's just like this is dark, man. This is some heavy shit.
Yeah, for sure. What else are you consuming?
So I actually have not got around to watching this week's yet, but I've really been enjoying this season of House of the Dragon. I've enjoyed it way more than the first season.
Okay.
I did not quite get the level like the first season was fine. It was not the way the early Game of Thrones was. My issue was it was pretty obvious that the first 2/3 of that season was really prologue for the show that they actually wanted, like the story they actually want to tell. Which, like, to be fair, like you can't tell it without all that.
Yeah.
But like it's very obvious after you fully like embrace after the time jump that it's like, oh, this is where the show actually starts, but you also can't have the show start here. You needed to have that backstory.
Sure.
Like it's a feature, not a bug. Mm-hmm. You know, that doesn't mean I have to like it, but like it. Yeah. Like I understand why they did it. It's fine. Like there's no way to do without doing it.
They're like, look, we got to do a thing.
Now that they've established the full cast that we're dealing with now, like because like as much as I liked some of the people who are playing the younger characters, like now that we're in this full cast is established, we can start to come to terms with who these people are, like what their stories are, what their personalities are. There's like a level of stability that I feel like we have here, even with like there's been some casualties early on already in this season. Are you all the way caught up? Or
No, I just watched the second episode the other day.
Oh, okay. So you have not seen all the casualties yet.
Yeah, I've heard people bodies are going to drop.
Yeah, important ones too. Which it's good to see.
I'm looking forward to it. I don't like anybody, so I'm fine with it. Let's just kill them all.
I'll just put it this way: one of the very few characters who I actually like dies. But fantastic episode. Probably the best episode of the show altogether so far. Like the first 2 seasons.
Which one? So the most recent one?
No, I guess I forget how many are out. But actually, it might be the one after the one you just watched. If you've seen the first 2, I think it might be the third. That might be the best. If that's the one, I'm trying to do the math because I forget what episode this was supposed to be this past week. But I want to say actually it'll be the next one you watch. I think the best episode of the whole show so far.
Cool. That's exciting.
Yeah,
I will say after watching the first episode of the second season, I was like, I still didn't really care that much, and I was just like, certain pieces of it, obviously, I didn't really want to watch. And then I finally, after weeks, sat down to watch the second episode. I had a night to myself, and I put it on, and I was like, all right, I'll watch more.
It starts really picking up with that episode, because I want to say there was the third, I think, is when I was talking about. The fourth. So I think I want to say the fifth was just this past week.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure, the third was the one. Yeah, second, third, fourth, fifth, like that whole, or second, third, fourth have been like a pretty strong run of episodes in a row, and they're fully into the story now in a way and it's like tensions are escalating, like things are accelerating, all of that. Like the pieces are being moved on the chessboard. There's battles being fought. There's scheming being done in earnest, not just people talking obliquely around it. Like, shit is happening,
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'll keep it going. We just watched the first part of 3 parts of the final season of Cobra Kai.
The first part.
Which I was like, when it got us. It was like the thing where you're watching an episode, and then instead of going to the next episode, it recommends a different show, and I went, "What the fuck?"
That's always the worst when you're watching something and you didn't realize that's the end of it.
And I went back and I was like, "That can't possibly be the whole season." We didn't watch that many episodes, and it was 5 episodes that we watched, and they're doing 5, 5, and 5, and I'm just like,
it's a little annoying.
Wait, either release them weekly or wait and release the thing. I don't like.
You're allowed one
break.
You're allowed 1 break. If you want to do a long final season, you want to split it half and half, you can do that.
Stranger Things season 4 did an interesting thing where it was like, it was a couple of months, I think, before they released the second part of it. But the second part of it was 2 episodes that were both like an hour and a half long.
Yeah, I remember you saying they were basically like movies.
It was, and I'm very much looking forward to the final season of that, where it sounds like every episode is a movie.
Oh,
so that show is so good. Like we're gonna rewatch that. We have to time that one though, because it's a lot of content to rewatch. So it's like I need to know when it's coming out so that I could plan accordingly. Because I don't want to burn out. But I also want to have enough time to watch it all and not be behind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Love that show. But Cobra Kai is such good smut. Like I love it's terrible.
Smut, nice.
It's not good. It's not a good show. Like it's not good television. It's not good writing.
We've had a running joke where Gianna has watched all of that show Bridgerton on Netflix.
Yeah.
And I guess her boyfriend had expressed an interest in it, so she's been rewatching it with him. And I think they were finishing an episode, they were the only ones at the house. We were all coming back. It was Sunday, we were all going to be together, go out, pool, have dinner or whatever.
Mm.
And I think at some point, my mom was kind of doing something in the kitchen. I was at the table in the kitchen, but I was doing something else. So, I saw what was on, I knew what it was. And I think someone said something or something happened, and my mom was like, what smut are you watching over there? And, so that's been the running joke from now on, where ever anyone references it, or if they're talking about watching the show or whatever, I came in and they were watching it, and I just pointed at the TV and yelled, "Smut!" Or she had one of the books. It was sitting on the counter. I said, Gianna, you left your smut out, and I threw it at her.
It's so dumb.
It is very dumb.
It's just really it's dumb fun.
Yeah.
Cobra Kai. Like it's
we're
not winning any awards. It's just very entertaining.
I never had any interest. I know people have really enjoyed it, and that's great. I'm happy for anyone who's enjoying it. It's just I just don't care. Personally.
They definitely they went down a path for a while where I was getting a little bit irritated with it, where like the first couple of seasons very much like focused in on the kids, and then they decided to focus on the adults for way too long, and it's just like you are here for nostalgia purposes only. Like, just go back to the story.
You're just supposed to get me in the door.
Yeah, exactly. And then finally, it seems like they're finding a little bit of balance with it, which I appreciate. But it's fun. It's like the most unrealistic, ridiculous thing. So let me just lay the groundwork here. The former the sensei of Cobra Kai from back in the movies, John Kreese, is like he returns at some point and kind of takes Cobra Kai over from Johnny Lawrence, who kind of restarted Cobra Kai, but it was also kind of rebuilding his life, and like it had he's rough around the edges, but he's like kind of means well, but he basically gets it stolen from him by this douchebag that comes back out of nowhere. Things go terribly wrong. A lot of bad things happen. Eventually, John Kreese ends up back in prison, or ends up in prison. John Kreese has escaped prison.
Oh,
okay, that's where we're at now.
I see where the whole smut thing is coming.
Yeah, he has escaped prison by the finale of the previous season, and in this new season, he is not only back, but he is now the sensei of another group of karate folks that are participating in a global event that he is at. So I guess there's no extradition wherever they are.
Is this one of those international waters things?
It's
like,
Barcelona.
are they having it? So no.
It's Barcelona.
I'm pretty sure that we have extradition treaties with pretty much every continental European country.
I don't really know what they're doing, but I don't really care because it's still entertaining.
I think you've properly identified this as smut.
It is smut. It's great. It's great. It's good smut. What else? Anything else for consumption?
Yeah. So I've talked a bunch about Cinephobe on this show, the podcast where they rate poorly rated movies on Rotten Tomatoes, and they ascertain whether or not those were given a fair shake or not. So the main cast of that show is Amin El Hassan, who I came to follow through the Levitard show, who he's still associated with. Zach Harper, who's a basketball writer currently for The Athletic. I think he used to work for ESPN. And Anthony Mace, who produces a shitload of podcasts. That show actually started from a podcast network called Count the Dings, which I was aware of for quite a few years, but I think they were mostly Patreon exclusive when I came to be aware of them, but they weren't before that.
Okay.
So I was aware of them. I knew Zach was part of it. I knew Amin, whatever, but I knew Amin through all of his ESPN stuff. I didn't realize actually that Maze produced all of their shows and all that. So I kind of had started to dip my toes into a little bit more of their stuff because they still have their Patreon exclusive stuff, but they also have every show that they record has you can get 80% of it on any podcast app, and then there's additional parts, and then they do other extra stuff too. That's Patreon exclusive. So I'm not a part of the Patreon, but they have a few different podcasts that are all part of it. There's probably 10 of them that are full time, and then other people who are frequent guests and all that sort of stuff, including other people I'm aware of through the whole ESPN, Sports Illustrated, Fox Sports, all those types of people as they've moved from company to company and stuff like that. So a while back, probably around the time we recorded our last episode, they announced that they were doing a live show in New York City.
Oh, cool.
For all of their shows with the whole cast. It was the first time all of them were physically going to be together since pre-pandemic. The last live show they did was in San Francisco in 2019.
Okay. So
I was they're going to be right here in New York City on a Saturday night. Mike, also listens to Cinephobe. So I asked him, you want to go see the live show? He's yeah, well, why wouldn't we go do this? Mm-hmm. So me and him took the train down to the city Saturday, went, we wanted to get there ahead of time, plus, it's a Saturday evening. So we, made a day of it. Me and him went to like a pub, had something to eat, had much more beers than I expected because I didn't know that places did happy hour on Saturday afternoons.
Huh.
I thought that was only a weekday thing. So we drank twice as much as we paid for. I'll just put it that way. Fair. Walked the whatever couple of minutes to the venue. It was this little club in Chelsea somewhere, and it was actually like behind Chelsea Market, I guess. Like the main thing. It was like the next street over.
Yeah.
Super cool. It was like 200. They had 200 chairs out. It was like 2 blocks of 100 chairs.
Nice.
And they had like I guess they had like anyone who was like VIP. So basically anyone who was a Patreon like subscriber got to buy VIP ticket for cheaper than like the regular ticket or whatever. They got to go in for an extra hour, mingle with the cast. We went in an hour before the show started. Well, I guess we could have as well, although they had kind of all broken off and were talking amongst themselves, getting ready for the show. Mm-hmm. It's just not in my nature to like go up and like...
Yeah, I don't do that thing.
Like if they were walking around like saying hi to people, I would have loved to talk to them, whatever, but like they're in the middle of conversation. I'm not going to go up and be like, hey, even though they're 5 feet away. Like it's just not my thing. I don't know if that's right or wrong.
I'm with you. I am with you.
But anyway, they did almost like a 3-hour show live. They did like, a bit to start the show, whole segment of the show, whole segment, breaks, whole segment of show, break, whatever. It was a really fucking cool time. We went out, probably had a little too much drink, whatever. It was a long night. I took a forever train home. Just truly at that stage of the night. They stop at almost every fucking stop.
It's stopping at every stop. It's stopping in between stops for some reason. I know.
No, thankfully it didn't do any of that. It was going between the stops, but it stopped at many more stops than it usually stops. It's the drunk train. Well, I laid out, there was 3 of them, so I was like, hey, listen, I don't know what time we're going to get done. I was like, this one, probably not going to happen, but whatever. We missed that one by like 15 minutes, so it was like, okay. We had to wait like 45 minutes for the next train. The one I thought was most likely. I was like, this is the disaster scenario. It's like a 1:30 train or so like 1:50 train. I don't know what it was. I was like, I'm not going to get to the station because he's like halfway down from where I am. Like I got on the train, rode for about half the way. He jumped on the train. Both of us rode for the second half, and then did the same thing in reverse when we left. It's like that train won't even arrive until 3:30 by me, and like before I got to drive home 15 minutes. Or so. Man! I'm like that is the disaster scenario, but like terrible. It'll be worth it if like the show is awesome or whatever.
Sure.
Thankfully, we got the middle option. It was like 12:30, 12:45 train, something like that. I still didn't get home until almost 3:00. And by that time, I was fucking start. I was actually we were so mad. We were like amongst a handful of people who like walked into Grand Central, and were like running downstairs to grab something to eat because we have like a little while, and the places were literally all closing as we got there. We like got like that place is just closed. We looked at this one and like, oh no, they are in the act of closing. I'm like pulled out my phone. It's like 11:58, and I'm like, no. It's like they all close at 12. The train is leave for like at least half an hour. We're like, terrible. They're like, we have like a pretzel left if you want it, and like a bottle of water, and it's like we will take whatever you have. Yeah. It was me and Mike were splitting a fucking pretzel and eating. Or drinking water is like there was a food cart upstairs. Is like go up and get like a sad corn dog. I was like, I need a protein in me right now.
I need a protein.
I was like, I'm not super picky. I need a protein. But the show was fucking awesome. It was so cool. Great. It was so cool seeing all like I guess a few of them did a live show in Toronto a couple months ago, but it was like less than half of them who were all together. This is like literally none of them had all been together. Like there's like these 3 had seen each other, or those 2 had seen each other, or those 3 had seen each other, and like mix and match with that. It's just super cool that these people have all been doing this for like this long, and with like the craziness of like all of this, where like 2 of them live in New York, and 2 of them live in LA, and one of them is in San Francisco, and one of them lives in Arizona, and this one lives over in North Carolina, and it's like they're spread across the entire country. They still have been doing this throughout all of this, including, like I said, there's multiple shows that they do during the course of the week and all that. Like it was just super cool to see them all interact together like that, even though I'm like kind of new to the larger group.
Sure.
I don't know. It was one of those really cool things where it's like you can't miss an opportunity like that when you love like that sort of
for sure
show, or group of shows.
Yeah. That's cool. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed doing that. I mean, it absolutely thrashed my sleep schedule, and today will be putting me back behind the 8 ball again because
Yep.
like I said, I probably didn't actually fall asleep till like 3:30, and I kind of woke up at like 8:30 and like dozed through until like 10:30 because it was just like I truly cannot commit to getting up out of bed. I need to try and steal whatever 1% more sleep I can get. And like I kind of got a decent night Sunday, and not as much last night as I should have. And it's like tonight's gonna be bad because I got to get up early for work
snowballing again
tomorrow. But I'm gonna sleep good tomorrow night. But it was so worth it. It was such a good time.
Last night I was physically tired, but not mentally. Like I knew I was gonna lay down. I wasn't gonna fall asleep. It was not gonna happen. So I decided to post up in bed and play a video game for a little bit, and finally started to feel it. Like, oh, okay, eyes are getting heavy. I turned it off.
Sun's getting real low now.
The sun's getting real low. I laid down and I was like just about to drift off to sleep. It was like probably like 12:30, and then I hear Elio yell out. Which wakes me, like, immediately snaps me back up, and like my heart rate picks up and adrenaline kicks in, and I'm like, and we were going through. He's going through a phase right now with like trying to get us to like come back in and do like more things, like sing more songs, spin the fan, talk to him. But he's just trying to delay his bed. So like
he's been such a good run for so long. Now the rebellion.
Yeah. But we've gotten like we now know like that's what he's in. He's actually fine. So kind of have to wait it out a little bit and just see if it's gonna. So I usually do like a timer. I'll be like, I'm gonna give this 10 minutes, and see if he goes back to sleep. Sure enough, 10 minutes. He's still yelling. I sit up. He stops yelling. I look at the monitor. He is back. He's out cold. He is back asleep. I was like, he tired himself out and he went back to sleep. So I lay back down, like, now the cycle starts over again. I was like up for like another like 30 minutes, just like telling my brain, just like everything, we're done. Like, just go to bed. Like, it's over. But my brain is just like, no, stuff's happening. And it's insane. He tried doing that again before the show today. We were monitoring that, and he got himself back down. I was talking to Kim, and then we realized, the yelling has stopped. And looked at the monitor, and again, out cold, just completely.
The dull roar has subsided.
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, Ian is in the bedroom, like adjacent to him. Couldn't be phased. Just like out.
It's actually a miracle that doesn't wake him up.
It's insane. Ian has a helmet now.
I did see a picture somewhere.
It's adorable. It's too much.
What happened? He was sleeping on one side too much.
I just think like from birth, like when he was born, his head was kind of a football, and then I guess the way that it settled, it was flat on one side, and it starts to throw off like the symmetry of like his ears was the concern, and if it's too off center, like you could have inner ear problems. So it's like while the head is soft, take care of it. So we took care of it, and he's and he's fine. He's like unfazed by it, but it's just really funny. Sometimes I think when we take it off for like an hour and let him like kind of, you could tell his head is trying to figure out what's going on weight wise, and he's and he'll be sitting on the floor, and he'll put his forehead down to the floor. And then he'll pick himself back up, and he's just like all smiles, like, well, what's going on? Like, I'm really light right now.
You would think the way it looks like it would be like so burdensome, and it's like it's not actually. It becomes like a part of their environment after it's been on for like 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. But years ago, my mom babysat for a friend, like as a long term, like when she went to work, like my mom was like watching their kid, and she had to wear one of those helmets for quite some time as well. So like I was familiar with it before. That was the first time I'd ever seen it. Yeah, was with her. Yeah, that's actually a long time ago now. But it's always jarring to see it the first time, and it's like it's not really a big deal.
No, it's fine. It's already made quite a big difference.
Oh, good.
But how
many hours a day?
23. Like he's.
Oh, is it really like even when they sleep and all that?
Yep.
I couldn't remember. I thought the whole thing was. I know that they're supposed to wear it for the most of the time, but I thought there was more rest built into it than that.
Yeah, we will take it off every once in a while if he's like seems like he's kind of getting overheated and stuff. But yeah, for the most part, as long as he could have it on, they want it on because it'll just be that much faster that it does its thing. So
no, yeah, I didn't realize it was quite that long. I would have guessed it was like like 16 or something like that for some reason.
But it's cool. He looks like a little tough guy, and he looks like he's ready for a boxing match.
Oh, so it looks like it looks like wrestling headgear, or like when you see like sparring, like boxing, and like headgear, like when they're not in like an actual match.
And it really works out because like he got it like while he was like starting to just kind of sit on the floor without any support, and every once in a while he'll topple. So built-in protection. It's great.
He's gonna get the brain scramblies.
Yeah, but seriously, unfazed by the brother screaming. Right, literally, like it's a wall away. Like, I hear it downstairs. He hears it. He just doesn't seem to care.
So have you guys like optimized? Like, do you have the one on the outside of the one wall and the other on the outside of the other to give maximal like air gap to distance?
No, they're on the corresponding wall of their like they're far apart, but they could be further if. But the way that Ian's room is. The crib would be right when you open the door, and I'm not about that.
Oh yeah, no, of course,
but it's fine. But they got sound machines, and it kind of it does a good job of like canceling out some sound. But
that helps.
It's they're funny. They're funny. Anyway, any other consumption?
One brief note because it doesn't really bear like discussing, but just like it's been something that's been going on. After we had talked about it quite a bunch, I don't know if it was last episode or the episode before that, but in anticipation of the arrival later this year of the new Dragon Age game, I dipped my toes back in the water. It had been several years since I'd played the second one, and that's my favorite one. So I'm almost done with the playthrough of that, and still love that game.
That's awesome. I'm happy to report and sad to report that yesterday, when I was in bed and choosing a game to play, I was like, you know what? I'm going to load up Mass Effect Legendary Edition and start over because I have it on my Steam Deck. And I launched it, and it was like, what's your EA sign-in? And I was like, I don't know. I went to the password manager that I have, and I have an EA sign-in in there, so I use that, and it's like, problem. And I was like, cool. Can we skip signing in? And it's like, no. And the game closes. And I was like, guess I'm not playing this tonight because while I'm not tired enough to fall asleep, I'm too tired for this bullshit.
What was the problem?
I don't know. Wanted me to sign into some EA account.
Oh, but like the login you had didn't work?
It didn't work. It was like there was a problem. That's all.
It didn't say wrong password or something like.
No, problem signing in.
It's annoying. When was this?
Last night.
Oh, it was last night. So this wasn't like a few days ago. This wasn't like the whole CrowdStrike bullshit or any of that.
This is just last night. But I was like, so I ended up playing like a little bit of Splinter Cell. I hadn't played that game in a very long time.
Which one?
Was fun. The first one.
Oh, okay.
Which was fun. But I did buy. I had a gift card kicking around, and there was a Sony store sale. So I did pick up and install Elden Ring, which I'm really excited to try, but also very intimidated by.
Well, there was a huge expansion that just came out.
There was, yeah. I chose not to buy the bundle with the expansion because I don't even know if I like the game yet. But we'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward to trying that.
Yeah, I mean it's all of those like Soulsborne style games, although it's like the much more intense even than like we've grown to love the Jedi games, right? Like it looks like too much in those styles games. I just don't know if I would enjoy them.
It does. I agree. It looks like too much, but for some reason, there's something I'm very intrigued by, like the world that they've created, and I want to play around in it. So.
Well, it's what's his name created it. Mm-hmm. George R. R. Martin helped like create the actual world.
Yeah,
when he was not writing Winds of Winter, I guess.
So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. More on that next time if I actually get some time to sit down and play it. With that, let us get into our flick of the week. Godzilla Minus One, released in 2023, rated PG-13 with a 2-hour, 4-minute runtime. Your IMDb synopsis. Post-war Japan is at its lowest point when a new crisis emerges in the form of a giant monster, baptized in the horrific power of the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Movie it definitely is much more going on than just that, but good overall overall synopsis for getting in the door. Why don't you give us your Toot-length review?
Sometimes back to basics is all you need, and a focus on character and story doesn't hurt either. 7.5 out of 10.
Nice. If you have expectations for Godzilla Minus One, abandon them. You couldn't guess what you're in for. 7 out of 10.
Okay.
I was very, very pleasantly surprised with this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I had been hearing for a while people talking about this, and I was like, another Godzilla movie, whatever. Yeah. And then I saw, like, it was like a whole other thing. Like, it wasn't part of, like, these things that they've been doing, like Legendary Monsters or whatever the fuck movies those are. I was like, okay. Like, so, I've just never really cared about these movies. I know people have loved them for, like, 100 years. Like, at this point almost now. And, like, that's great and all. Like, they're just largely not for me. And when we had talked about it, it's like, okay, like, it came out on whatever it was, Netflix or whatever, and it's like, all right, we're looking for a movie. It just came out on Netflix. Why not? Let's give it a try. Like, enough people seem to like it. I was hearing enough people say, hey, listen, the dub is cool and fine. More on that from you later.
Yep.
But watch on the original. It's like, okay, if that's available to me, like, I usually make an effort to do that now.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what it was going to be about. I assumed it was just some Godzilla movie or whatever. I didn't realize this was literally back to when Godzilla was created as an allegory for nuclear power and the fallout of all of that. And I was like, oh, this is... So I don't know if this is like a remake of that. I did not look into the history of all of that. It didn't matter to me. All I know is it hews closely enough to what inspired it to begin with. It was cool to see that sort of thing. So, like, there may be an original story that this is very similar to. I don't know. But for what it was in this time period, this is not the movie that they've been making, and they keep making them over and over and over again. Sometimes I think less might be more. And I mean that both in the micro and the macro, because kind of less was more for the most part in this. I mean, I do think the jankiness of the monster in all his glory. I mean, surely it was meant to be an homage to when it was stop motion, but
sure,
because of how, like, technically good so much of the the action around it was, it was jarring to see it. You know what I mean? Like the effects and the stunts were so good on everything that was not the monster that it was weird to see the monster moving, like, seemingly in slow motion.
Right.
But I enjoyed it. It was interesting. I know that the nation of Japan was totally devastated after World War II. I mean, how could you not be? You can't possibly forget the atomic bombs, but know, some people, while in some ways that is like the worst possible thing ever, the actual damage done during the bombing of Tokyo was actually worse, from what I understand, on like a destruction level, and like the total lives lost in the event of doing that. Now, like the radiation and nuclear fallout may ultimately have down the line created much greater death count, but because so much of the old city was still wood, and they were literally like firebombing, it was just burning the whole city down. Yeah. And what reclaiming their lives, like their civilization, was like after all of that. And like, I don't say this to me, like, I mean, there was a war of aggression created by it. I'm not getting into the politics of all what led to it. I'm talking about from the moment after the war ends. I've never really considered what that decade must have looked like in that country, where you have to reconcile with the fact that the 500 years of their culture led to that moment for them, and they had to find a new path while literally picking up the pieces. Right. And to consider that something might have come 5 seconds after that, when they were trying to like go through this identity crisis and actual physical crisis as well at the same time, and now you've got this giant fucking lizard stomping around top of you, and like that's its own interesting explanation. But even just like the real cost and like the real what it looks like putting together a country again after that's done.
Yeah, I was thinking about the title of the movie and presuming that this is a sequel to the 54 Godzilla, but then the concept of no, like they're like, you know, they were wiped out to zero, and then this thing happened. So like minus one, right? Like and like it just really is interesting. It was an interesting way to approach it, and it really like it made this movie about this like that, with the centerpiece of this gigantic monster have just so much more weight, and like there was so much character and there were so many emotions flying around. I just kept I actually took a page out of your book from I don't know, it was probably years ago at this point, because I don't know any continuity with our episodes at this point and when they've come out, but you did a Stefan reading of what this movie has for some movie in the past.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but think that throughout watching this movie. So I wrote a bunch of things down.
This movie has everything.
Yeah. So I have my list. I didn't realize that I actually saved it back when I watched it, but this movie has everything: Survivor's Guild, Chosen Family, Double Orphaning, National Pride, Despair, Tradition, Resurrection, Kaiju, Wooden Boats, Science, Freon.
A club
at the bottom of the ocean. That's amazing. But seriously, like there's like so much going on with it. Like, and like the lead character and his his struggle from the beginning, like struggling with like the concept of being a kamikaze pilot. Right, and then being shamed for not doing the thing,
struggling with surviving being a kamikaze pilot.
Yes,
something that no one else has ever done.
Right,
for obvious reasons.
But then, like, I mean, following this trajectory of -1, bails out, survives being a kamikaze pilot, lands, and then where he lands, everybody else dies but him, and it's like. Again, it's just kind of like constantly piling on.
That right there is enough to fuck someone up. Like,
yeah,
I was chosen to die.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. The people I was supposed to die saving are the ones who die.
Yeah. It's a rough concept, but it really does. It captures the despair and like the hopelessness, and then. But there's also something kind of wonderful about like they're still fighting, right? Like they still like all is lost, but they still try to win against Godzilla. And it's pretty cool the way that they go about it, the way they go about fighting the giant beast. But I will say, I've seen a handful of Godzilla movies in my time. The 2001, what was that? The Matthew Broderick one.
Godzilla 2000 was its own thing, right? It was
but wasn't it around that time that the Broderick one?
It was late 90s. It was like 97.
Yeah. Okay, saw that one. I didn't see. I don't think I've seen Godzilla 2000. I may have, but I saw like the new one. Or the new one when it was the new one that they they brought him back, brought Godzilla back, and then the Godzilla Kong thing I think we watched together, or did we do it on the show? I don't even know. I think we might have.
We do a joint episode that was Godzilla and Godzilla versus Kong, no, Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Maybe, yeah.
And then we definitely saw and did Kong Skull Island.
Yeah.
And then
anyway,
I think we did Kong versus Godzilla or whatever that came out like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whenever that was.
I've seen a few of these things, and I feel like the power of Godzilla in this movie blows all of those out of the water. Like when he charges up and just does a nuclear blast, that and then you just see a mushroom cloud in the distance where I was just like, oh. That was this is crazy. Also, it's like way to just rub salt in the wound there, bud. Like this is just too much going on. Just mushroom clouds all over the place. But it was just it was really like the kind of hopelessness with like how intense and insane this beast is, and how it could just wipe them out in an instant. But they still try. And I think that was the rallying behind it. Like it could be good. It could be a good movie for like that, like a post-war era like that, where you are trying to kind of, bring back like the pride of the people and like kind of help them like kind of build up and get through something. But like they fight their way through it against all odds, and they come up with some really interesting solutions. The Freon thing was really fantastic.
Oh yeah, I never would have thought about that in any way, shape, or form, but it was a pretty clever plan, and like even like having like the plan B, like, okay, well, if sinking him doesn't work, we'll just bring him back up and then he'll explode surely. You know, and then even coming up with a third level to that and all that. Well, like if that doesn't work, we've got it under control.
It's like plan A, sink him to the bottom of the ocean really fast. Plan B,
unsink him.
The bends.
Yeah.
Plan C,
explosive bends.
And then I did love the mechanic building in the ejection seat, like for it, and like it's like one of those, like, I feel like if you're paying attention, you know where it's going, but just the execution of it was still very good.
Yeah,
and I appreciated that. It wasn't as opaque as it is in like the Dark Knight Rises. Like you see it all happen. But it like blow up his head.
Yeah.
And then it just reforms in the post credits. It's just like, not today. This is like -2. Like, it's gonna get worse.
Well, that's one of those things that's always been the case, right? Like Godzilla always comes back.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's the good guy, sometimes he's the bad guy, sometimes you're not entirely sure.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there is something to the whole, you can't kill fire with fire, right? Like you can't out weapon Godzilla, who the whole is its own like stand-in for weaponry and martial like technology and all that sort of stuff. So I think probably the only way you could kill him would be like much like Kong, beauty that killed the beast.
Yeah.
I don't know actually if there's ever, I don't know if there's ever been a story where Godzilla ever gets permanently defeated. I don't know if there is a way to, which
I don't know.
It's kind of fucked up in its own way, I guess, but
shoot him into space.
Just more radiation. Just cosmic rays.
Yeah.
No atmosphere blocking that sun.
Put him in the sun.
Gamma radiation. He's just gonna become the sun. But I agree. Like the devastation was pretty. Considering how I thought, like like you said, they kind of made it like a retro style of Godzilla, where he was like moving in like very paced, slow motion, and all that. To see the devastation he unleashes with the ray, and then also like even when he's swimming, like he's like fully in his element. When he's chasing down the boat was like a pretty, Jaws-esque scene, which was pretty cool. The mechanic was interesting because he's kind of meant to be the foil of the worst like bit of like self-loathing that he has, where I should be dead, those people shouldn't be dead, and he's like, no, you should be dead, and they shouldn't be dead. Let there be no illusions. Don't talk this back and forth. There's only one side to this, and it's that you're a fucking asshole.
Yeah,
beats the shit out of him, like all that sort of stuff. And then
they could have leaned into that even more, where instead of him building an injection seat in, he could have actively taken it out.
Yeah, won't need that.
Yeah.
But to have that whole thing where both of them are coming full circle, where it's like, no, I was wrong. You did do the stuff. You've done your best. I didn't have the proper perspective, and like you do, and you actually have something to live for now. And actually building that whole thing and encouraging him, saying like, you don't throw your life away. Like this is like, you have something to live for. Do it. Live it.
Yeah.
Like honor their sacrifice, honor their loss, the people that you love, and continue being able to be there for the people you love and all that. And it was cool to see their two stories like intersect and intertwine and like bounce off of each other and all that. Like that's good writing, right? Like
it really was. It's funny you had mentioned before, like you watch it with subtitles, and I watched the dub version unwittingly. I didn't know that I had an option. Like when I turned it on, I just kind of let it roll. But I do think that like I would have preferred to watch it the way that you did, because I do think that the translation and this like certain overact like over delivery that happens, especially in I find, especially like with like the like Japanese language films, like it makes it kind of like messes with the delivery a little bit, because the voice acting, like the voice dubbing, it just doesn't match the energy of what's happening on screen, or it tries to like overdo it in a way where it's like, this just feels campy.
Well, this is perfect. You were just saying that you've rewatched The Other Guys for the first time in forever. You came in, you were talking about how we were going to do bad cop, and I saw what you were doing, and I was like, I got to go even further than that. Bad cop, bad cop. What are you talking about?
Man.
But yeah, no, I think that you're right. And there's also obvious language stuff with respect to, in a moment when like it's very important, beat by beat, moment by moment, what someone's saying versus what they're emoting. I imagine that the message comes out very differently. Like the length of sentences are different, and like that's going to play havoc on like the timing of those sequences where he like really cuts loose and lets out like this rage that he can barely control, this grief that he can barely control. You know, trying to see like that now through the additional layer of, okay, we're seeing something, we're hearing something, we're seeing something, hearing something, reading something, or seeing something, hearing something, and that thing that we're hearing doesn't match up with what we're seeing. Like that's a whole different like level to that whole dilemma.
Yeah, for sure. I think that is her name Noriko? I don't know if you remember the character name.
Something like that.
When they're in the city and Godzilla's attacking, and she pushes, was it Kochi? Is that?
Yeah, well, it was Shikishima wasn't that what they were referring to him? It's been too long now. Was it?
Well, when she pushes the lead into the alleyway, I was like, oh no. And then like it's blown off screen. I was like, really? Like we're just gonna do this too? We're just gonna wipe her out? I was like,
that was pretty shocking. Also, was one of those things where it's like, as like shocking in the moment and as like brutal as it was to witness, there's also an element of like he was like 1 foot away from that. Like, I mean, that doesn't seem like that was...
yeah, exactly. I was also and for two problems. Why was he not harmed? Why didn't you just take the step that way instead of back out of the alley after you pushed it?
That was like one of the few things they didn't execute with like great precision, where it's like she could have tackled him off screen. Instead, she pushes him bodily, which totally stops her own momentum and just leaves her exposed right there in the middle of the space. But you know, for narrative reasons, you understand why.
It's fine.
It's also kind of like shocking and like extra. Like she survives the whole crisis in the train just to got like that. You know,
but then comes back.
There was also ultimately comes back, which that was actually legitimately kind of surprising to me.
Die on screen. If you don't die on screen, you're not dead.
Sure, but it did seem like she was blown physically off of the screen.
She was in fact blown off the screen. Yeah, she was blown away. I was blown away by this movie. So was she.
Yeah.
That was one of my gripes. Was just step in the alley, be okay. The only other, one thing that it's so silly in this ridiculous thing with this giant lizard monster. You obviously have to suspend your disbelief, but he just stands up in the middle of the ocean, and that's always a thing that's gotten to me.
Godzilla?
Yeah.
Well, like you're like questioning the depth of the water at any given time?
I'm like, especially in this one with the fact that the mechanism for defeating him was to sink him. But before they sink him, he's standing up.
Much like a submarine, he has variable buoyancy.
But it's those Godzilla toes.
He's got those blowout valves in his toes.
It's like, and it's completely, it completely doesn't matter at all.
Or is this like that? Actually, I mean, I only watched the one movie and I never read the books. But isn't that the whole thing with like the Chronicles of Narnia? Like Aslan is as big as the children need him to be at that given stage of their life, or whatever, like that. Godzilla is as tall as he needs to be as the plot needs him at that point.
Fair. Godzilla's actually a gas, and he just takes up all of the space.
He expands to fill the space.
How do they know I got gas?
Oh.
Yeah, just it's a really like it's so. I feel the movie is like kind of it's like kind of all over the place, but like in a good way. Like there's the fact that it's able to spend so much time focusing on the lead and his survivor's guilt and how he's like he's trying, but also still kind of hoping that he dies. It seems like throughout most of
picking the most dangerous job possible.
Yeah, but and then you get like these moments of levity, like when they're like shooting the mines and like all this. Also, the really cool scene of pulling the mine, getting it so that Godzilla's gonna bite it, and then shooting it and being like, "Yeah, we did it," only for his face to heal moments later. Which was just like,
no, it was clever. It was clever.
-3. Like, it's just
was he like a reverse cat? Every time he dies, he gets an additional life.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's just it's kind of hard to capture the essence of this movie. I feel like you have to experience it. It's very much worth the watch. Especially even if you're not like, I mean, I'm not like you said, you're not like a big Godzilla fan or anything. I really don't care at all about any of these things. But I heard good things about this movie, and when I watched it, I was very, very satisfied with the experience. Just overall a good time.
Yeah, no, and I was surprised to find how pleased I was with the whole experience. I wonder how, we were talking a little bit about it just a minute ago, like how it carries through with like a different. Did you notice, like, was like the voice cast I hired to dub it? Was it like anyone like you knew, or
I didn't notice?
Like, it is interesting if they find people who are good actors, if they're able to match those energies, and it is tough. But I thought they did a great job. I mean, like, the person who's definitely the most emotive is like the main character, Shikishima.
Mm-hmm.
When he's like throw himself to like say what he's going to say, but then be incredibly stoic in between all of those things.
Right.
Watching how both him and his, we'll call partner, for lack of a better term, considering most of the movie, like, they didn't quite know how to identify what they were, which is one of the central tensions in all of like the part of like putting their lives back together. It was such a jarring thing to me. This whole, he takes her and the kid in with like almost no warning. It's like I will do one right thing, right? Like, I'll do one thing. It won't atone, even though, like, you could argue probably it does atone, but like, it won't atone. But like, I'm going to do it anyway to try and do something right. Mm-hmm. And watching their relationship develop, and watching how each of them, that pause they built in anytime anyone said anything about them being together or not together before, kind of like that stilted like attempt at trying to get out like what like their relationship is, like talking around all of those things, whereas like to everyone else it's very obvious, like, you clearly care about each other,
right?
What you've done for each other and for this child, who is not even either of your child, like, you're both good people who like deserve this thing, and you're denying it in the cruelest possible way, which is like, you're having it but not enjoying it.
Right.
It's like the having your cake but not enjoying it. It's like, I have this beautiful cake and I want it, and I will display it for people, and they'll all say, "That's a great cake. It must be so good." And you're like, "What?" But no, it's not.
I don't deserve this cake.
It's not cake. I don't deserve the cake. Like, why would you even think that I would want the cake? No, it's just great to have the cake here.
Mm-hmm.
And like, just to watch them play that, because in those scenes, it's much more about the visual than the audio anyway. And like the words are like clear enough, and a touch cliche.
Meanwhile, everybody around them in their lives at that point are like, "Eat the cake."
Yes, I love the grumpy neighbor who's like totally rips him to shreds when he first shows up.
Yeah,
she's like just totally buries him. And it's like, you got this kid. Okay, well, here, I have some food. And we're like, no, like, they're all starving, and she still gives him the food. And like, to watch her become kind of the grandmother of the family. Like, I mean, we're talking about found family. I mean, like, this is not the ultimate like misfit situation of these three people and their child, who's become now their child. Like, and to watch her like allow herself to emotionally connect to them after like keeping them away for so long, and how she truly feels like the grandmother, even though she doesn't feel like either of their parent. Like, I don't know. It was such an interesting dynamic to watch, like, it unfolds as it went.
Yeah, I agree. The moment though where he drops her off at fake grandma's and there's the envelope of money waiting, or it doesn't drop her off, but there's the envelope of money waiting. She's like, "Fuck." Oh man, but yeah, I mean, like, it's interesting. You mentioned like the kind of the effects of Godzilla itself being like it's a kind of clunky, but it does feel intentional, like, and by design, especially if you kind of want to like look at it as a prequel to like all Godzilla things. But otherwise, like, like the practical and other effects, like very good. And it's just this one thing that stands out, which it's just weird because like it's so weird because it feels intentional and it makes it acceptable that it is that way, and it fits almost. Like there's a certain style to it that really does work, especially because it is clunky. And the fact that you're able to pull off the gravity of this monstrosity while it looks clunky is really just a testament to the writing and execution of like the plot lines. And it's just like they did like this movie shouldn't be as good as it is.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like a Godzilla movie shouldn't be this good. I'm not a Godzilla fan.
Well, especially because the story that they told it so well was really ultimately pretty simple on like its broadest strokes. I mean, like there are a lot of nuances in there. I mean, watching the sequences, like the men are all trying to decide whether they're going to do something that the government can't, and the U.S. won't help, and all that, and like watching the resolve on these guys' faces, where it's like if anyone was like should have been allowed to spend quite like an entire decade curled up in the corner licking their own wounds. And instead, it's like, no, we need to get together and
it's like saddle up
and get back out there and defend our people and like put this all back together. We like, despite the fact like you couldn't have had a more crushing blow, and we're not going to let this be the thing that puts us out entirely. No. And just like some of those interactions with like the group of them as they're trying to like kind of reclaim their pride in a less unhealthy way to how their culture had embraced it for, like I said, quite a few hundred years before that. It's, it was like kind of an interesting, heartwarming thing. And like the fact it wasn't just a bunch of like gung-ho soldier guys. Like, we're talking about like this professor basically is like organizing this whole thing.
Right.
There's the young kid who never saw a second of combat, who's helping and leading this crusty old captain, who's not that old captain, like all like, and all these other random guys who are like, I got stuff to do to take care of my family. Like I barely got back together to do all of this from, and now we got to go back out, break into the breach once more. And like, then they had a moment right where like, does anyone wants to leave? Like this is purely voluntary and no one leaves. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Powerful stuff. We'll say, the kid that hadn't seen combat to win the day by managing to get all of these other ships to come in. It's another silly movie thing that you just kind of accept and move on from. But there's no way you're surprised by 40 giant battleships showing up. Like you see them for a while before they get there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably true.
I love the instant, like, we're here. And it's like, yeah, now we're going to win. And it's just like, guys.
Come on, it's for dramatic effect.
Yeah, I know. It's just very silly. But, yeah, overall, great watch. Unexpected, enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
Any other closing thoughts?
I don't think so. I mean, like, this is the type of movie that, like, it wasn't afraid to let you sit with a moment of contemplation during the course of it, and I thought they balanced that properly, where it never felt like it dragged. But it didn't feel like they were just talking just to say something either.
Right.
And I thought they were a good job in like kind of meeting out the action scenes throughout the course of it, where you get that big set piece early on with Godzilla's first attack, and then you don't really get much, and then you're getting a snippet here and a snippet there, and then you have your big finale, but it all felt like balanced and earned in all of that. And for its budget, which is probably not small, I didn't look at what it was. I thought it all looked pretty good. Like I said, even like the one thing with Godzilla, like it felt like a choice that was being
it was
like,
intentional.
Not like we just couldn't do any better than that, or we had to rush it and get it done. Yeah,
it wasn't like a bad Marvel shiny. It was it was an artistic choice. I agree. That all of this, like the quiet moments, letting them breathe, like taking the characters, but then bookended by that just banger of a theme song for Godzilla. I just love it so much.
Oh yeah, I was thinking about it earlier. I can't place it in my head anymore because it's been quite a few weeks, but I remember hearing it. I was like, oh, okay, like that's something real right there.
It's so good. It's been sampled a million times over the years, but it's still so good. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Well, that's all for this week's episode of Flix and a Six. We hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you have a movie for us to discuss or but movie for us to review, or not just for us to discuss. That's usually what I say. You can send those requests to flixinthesix@thespintune.com. Tune in next week for more movie and beer goodness. Until then, I'm Anthony Costanzo.
I'm Biolsi.
Thanks for coming out.